Hello, everyone. Hi. Welcome to our Elevate 2023 IG50 live stream, supporting anybody out there looking to develop their portfolio in a range of different areas. We've started at 3, which is fantastic. Looked for a second there if we might be a little bit late, but just hope you guys are enjoying the sunshine wherever you are. Really happy that you can join us today, and hopefully you're going to get a lot out of it. As we go, if you've got any questions for any of the industry professionals that are here today giving portfolio advice, then please just pop them straight into the chat, and then we'll make sure that we get to them at some point during the next few hours. So we've got a big long stretch with you guys. My name's Declan. I'm the CEO of Intergames. And we've been working to support people into the game sector in the UK for the last 5 years. We do a whole range of different programs and projects to support people gaining the right information and the right support when and where they need it. And one of those big programs that we run is called the IG50. And the IG50 is a awards. It's an awards for the 50 most employable, unemployed people in games. So it's people that absolutely deserve their first role, but maybe haven't been given that shot yet. It's currently open for submissions, and this event is part of helping get your portfolio in the right state to submit towards that award process. People that win the awards often go on to work in the sector, and in fact, over 70% of winners last year are now working in games. As a winner, you'll get kind of a year's worth of support from us. We'll introduce you to a whole bunch of different studio partners, and we'll kind of elevate your name and get you really out there as much as possible. So really suggest that you do submit an entry into that. You can see a little thing that's running along here. Go to intergames50.uk and go and have a shot. Why not? You've got nothing to lose. So we're going to kick off today with a kind of old hand when it comes to doing Intergames presentations. He's been supporting people into the sector for a long time. His talk is amazing. It's really important if you're a level designer or a game designer at all and you want to kind of know where to pitch your portfolio. So I'm just going to kind of introduce him to the stream. Hopefully this is going to happen quite smoothly. We've got Jonathan Wilson from Hangar 13. How you doing?
I'm good, thanks. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine. Yeah.
Great. That's always my only concern when I do these virtual things. So.
How are you doing? Can you see the sunshine from your window somewhere?
When I'm at my desk, I can. I'm in a small meeting room right now, which I can see the light coming in, but can't see directly outside.
Oh, good. Well, thanks for joining us at 3 p.m. on a Friday. I know it's not the best time to be running these kind of things, but I think we're probably going to get a really dedicated group of people watching this that really want to improve their portfolio because they're staying in on a nice sunny day. So just a hello to everybody out there. Thanks again for watching. So Jonathan, I'm going to probably just skedaddle off and kind of let you get on with it. As I said before, people can post questions in the chat, and if we've got time afterwards, then if it's all right with you, we'll do a little Q&A, and then we'll wrap up in a bit. Cool. Okay, right. I'll get out of here, and then you're okay with presenting, right? You can see where that is and everything.
Yeah, I think let me just start this now. Actually, just
okay.
Cool. Can we see my screen? I'm going to kind of need chat to confirm that for me. There we go. A little bit delayed, but it's there. That's fine. We're all good. Okay, so kind of see that. It's framing okay, I guess. Let's see how we actually get on. Things are moving. That's okay, right? So I'm just going to run through this. Like Declan said, just going to be focused on design portfolio tips, and as I go, you'll kind of see how it unfolds. I'm kind of talking from I try to go on a wide spectrum because design is a multifaceted field. So instead of just telling you to specialize in one, hopefully the tips you get out of this will help you think about how you can make a portfolio for a game designer, narrative designer, level designer, or system designer. So one caveat to how to perfect a design portfolio. I always have to kind of go with the kinda because like in my kind of recollection, perfecting it is very subjective. Like the definition of perfect is always super subjective too. As much as I'd like to give you that silver bullet or the one-stop shop to make the perfect design portfolio, I can only give you guidance and advice to hopefully help you make a good one or a strong one overall, but get you that step closer to making the perfect design portfolio. So a little outline of what we're going to kind of touch on or look at today. I'll give an overview of what I've done, so you know what perspective I'm coming at from this advice and things like that, and you can see what my experience is and kind of how I've tackled portfolios in the past as well. We'll talk about like why leading with your work is important, why you should always follow consistent design rules and conventions. This applies to game and level design, but also applies to your portfolio. What to show, the age-old saying of quality over quantity stuff. The idea of scoping projects and learning from some of my mistakes. And there's a quick little addition if we've got time. I'll do like a CV pit stop, and this is just some more general rules of thinking about what you might want to include in your CV. So a little bit about me, like Declan said, like my name's Jonathan. I've been in the industry for about like 10 years now. It's been a long kind of journey. You can see up there, I've worked for a bunch of different companies. I've kind of covered the gamut. I've worked indie, I've worked AAA, I've worked freelance. It's always been within the game or level design kind of field and specialization as well. At this point, I think I've shipped up to 9 games, plus I've got a couple of unannounced works from projects that I've kind of done as well when I was contracting. And I did design across like kind of every major platform as well. So that's like kind of consoles, so Xbox, PlayStation, PC, mobile, VR, part of BAFTA Games and Industry Mentor, which is how I kind of get involved in this sort of stuff to kind of help you guys. So a quick pit stop at some of the work I've done. This is how it started. This is the first project I worked on kind of out of uni, a little weird horde zombie muncher. That was with Nosebleed and Directive. That was on the PS Vita, if anyone knows or remembers what that platform was. From that, I went to work on action 2.5D action platformer. I've worked on puzzle games as well from a design perspective, going down that way. Tactics games, I've actually done 2 of these. You'll see later on another one I'll come around to. So this was another VR game. VR puzzle games, I think like Mario Party, lots of little mini games, so like quick, good feedback loops and stuff like that as well. Quite cutesy art style. Shadowpoint, more narrative-driven puzzle game, and this was the last VR project I actually worked on before I moved on to kind of New Horizons. I then joined Hangar 13, which is where I worked on the Mafia remake. I worked there for like 2.5 years. I then left to work with us 2 as a contractor, and I worked on Desta, which is another tactics game, but I am now actually back working at Hangar 13. So that kind of covers a lot of the stuff to see what perspective I'm coming at when I'm giving you these tips and advice. Like I'm not just a one-trick kind of designer, and that's fine. Like you can find your specialization too. But the important thing here is to think about your portfolio as always leading with your work. So let your work kind of speak for itself. You make it your homepage, and the reason this is important, I see people kind of forget this over time, is I probably get into your portfolio through your CV or through your Twitter or through your LinkedIn. So I kind of know who you are, I know a bit about you or something like that. And like something in reading that CV or reading your LinkedIn page or seeing a tweet you put out has made me want to invest more in what projects you might work on. So when I get to your portfolio, I don't want to see the about me stuff again a second time. I'm not saying remove this entirely, just don't have it for your homepage. Like have your homepage be a nice showcase or a kind of like overall view of what you actually put out into the world, right? So lead with your projects. Most recruiters, like I said, will know you. Like if they're going through a recruitment process with you, they get into your portfolio by acquiring the link from somewhere else. And it's just like, let's lead with that work. Let's stick that. So like you can imagine a homepage, which is just like a nice list. So it's maybe like a nice heading for the project, a nice image. And if I click into it, I can go and learn more. Just having a section of those to be the first thing I see in a portfolio is really helpful. And the little thumbnails are good too, because it means I can pick the project that I find most striking if I'm not already looking for a specific one. Consistent design is another important thing. And I think it took me many years to like kind of sink and stick to this. Keep the format consistent, makes it easier to view, makes it easier for like anyone to read and digest this information. I actually stick to 1 design per page, and we'll see that a little bit later on. So it means like it's like a template, right? So I build 1 page, I've got the format, the layout, and everything for every other page I'm going to build. It makes it easier to access. don't overcomplicate this for you. Like if you overcomplicate it, it's just going to be harder for you to update it in the future. So this consistency will make your future updates. So when the more work you do, which if you're all starting out, you're going to do lots of wonderful projects as you go on. You're going to want to showcase them in a very easy way. And you don't want the bottlenecks to that be, oh, I can't be bothered to update my portfolio. Having a consistent design will actually help with that sort of stuff, making your life easier overall. Like I kind of mentioned briefly, the consistent design makes the maintenance and updating to this a little bit easier. It is important that you ensure the work on your portfolio is up to date. It should represent the designer that you are, or the designer you want to be, or what you're trying to be like overall. And I would kind of, when we talked about leading with your work earlier, try to lead with at least your best piece, or at least your most recent piece, which like if it's not your best, that's fine. But it's just like, yeah, try to keep a chronological order to these projects and how you've actually done it. And as you get more work, and you kind of will build this over professional and personal projects, don't be afraid to delete things. We'd rather see high quality work on your portfolio. If that's only like 3 pieces, that's not the end of the world, right? Like we don't want to see 20 odd pieces and like they'll all be kind of not fully finished. Like we'd rather see like less is more in that kind of situation, and you'll get more of these projects added to your list that you can actually add and update with it. The more you grow out your career, or while you're looking to get into the industry, you'll be building more of these kind of experimental projects just to learn. What was your best work won't always be your best too. So don't be afraid of something that was your best at one point. Oh, it's like kind of like getting rid of that. It's not the end of the world. It just means you've grown as a designer, and it's up to you to make that judgment call. No one else is going to do it for you, but you can take advice from other people and feedback and kind of like help someone else reevaluate it. Is it worth keeping up there as well? Keeping like updates small and incremental can be beneficial too, because it means like people come back, they see you're making progress. And this is an important one, especially if you create a page for a project, and I see this a lot, and you put coming soon, or like I've started development, and then like I check back a year later and there hasn't been any change or any update. So be careful of that. It's like a trap a lot of people fall into. Like we all start projects with good intentions. We might not actually get around to finishing them, which is kind of unfortunate. But we do have to try and keep that in mind. If it's just like, if you can do small incremental updates on an active project you're going on to, be aware and project your timescale, like say how long you plan to work on it or how long you've actually been working on it as well. And the advantage of having a live project or an iterative project is it'll evolve over time, and that'll just help you kind of stay engaged. And it might give you the motivation to actually develop something too. So it kind of helps you project that way. So we kind of talked about the simple design before, and I'm sure a lot of us have, in our journeys, like through education or whatever, or design, have heard of the KISS principle, which is kind of like simply keep it simple, stupid, right? And that sounds like really obvious, but we can use this in design every day too, right? Like we shouldn't overcomplicate mechanics. We shouldn't make things too complex for players to do. Don't make your website the most complicated thing in the world. Like it should be clean to read, easy to follow, easy to access the information. Like all the videos should be clear and coherent. And it sounds simple. Make sure all the links work. Make sure all the images fall like that. But keeping it simple makes it easier on the eyes of an actual viewer. And you've got to think recruiters and recruitment managers or design managers will look at thousands of portfolios. So the last thing they're going to want to do is have to struggle through to find what they're looking for. So a simplistic design, a consistent design, and keeping that stuff simple just makes it easier, and it makes someone engaging with your portfolio have a bit more of a pleasant time too. So that's basically just defining what it is. But like most systems work best if they're kept simple. Like I said, it can be a mechanic in a game, it can be a level. The key goal in the design is unnecessary complexity should be avoided. And this image kind of summarizes that, right? Image on the right is a bit of a mess. Technically, everything connects, all the boxes do connect, but we don't want to be sending recruiters on a wild journey around your portfolio to find stuff. Like have some kind of hierarchy to it, have some consistency to it, make it easy to follow. And like I just changed the layout, so it's not a process, and you can see how this is interchangeable. It's just focus on keeping the layout simple. Come on, don't stop. There we go. if we've all heard of modularity before, like this can obviously vary the term and definition of it like wildly, but it is like used a lot in design for like a lot of different reasons. And there's a way you can treat your portfolio and actually turn your portfolio into a modular piece, which will make updating and maintaining it a lot easier and a lot more coherent over time. But there's always commonalities to how we can show things. Modularity is your friend. You can define the rules of how it's shown. Like you can see, like on mine, I literally just alternate just for a bit of design variance between text, image, image, text, and it just goes up and down. But each project is a chunk, and each tile is kind of the same. So those are modular components. I can just go and go down and kind of select and add into them whenever I want. They're really useful for chunking info too. So you can kind of see on mine, I'll have the project name, and then I'll have the project image next to it, and I'll also have what my title and the company was I worked in for. So very high level information. But if someone goes here, they know what my responsibility is, what the project is, what company I work for on it as well. If this was a personal project, you can just put the project name. If you like, obviously you can just put game or level design, what your focus was on it, or put the project goal there. Like if it's not a job role, it's a personal thing, put what your project goal or ambition was there, but try to keep it short and snappy. But like just making these really clear and really obvious. A little personal preference for me, I'd rather have a list that I can scroll down than just a like one-page slideshow of things going past. Instead, it's just a little bit more pleasant for me to have full control and a high-level overview of what your actual portfolio can look at. And in the chunks, you choose what information you show, right? So we can have text, images, videos, etc. And it kind of just gives you a little bit more order to kind of how things function over time, just to kind of keep that stuff going. You have the order, it goes down, it has a linear flow. I can jump back to the top. And these are just tiles. They'll take you to the actual project pages themselves. So when I was talking about making it modular before, like this is when you dive into the pages. So like I start with the information, so what the info is. So usually you want to cover things like what the project was, so like a high level overview of what it is. On release games, I usually put the project like synopsis here, so it describes what the game is. And then I outline my responsibilities, and then I go into a bit more detail as I kind of go on. When I did this page, like desktop was still in development, so I couldn't share everything, but I could still show information and say what my responsibilities were on the game because it had been announced without spoiling things. So I kind of leave with the info to leave the viewer in. Then I'd leave with videos, trailers, or gameplay, depending on what you have. If you're doing a personal project, you can just go and do a walkthrough of your actual demo or something, right? Like that's a quite nice way you could talk over it as well. So it's like a dev guided tour of the level you're building, which is quite useful. And then screenshots. And just to show how modularity works. So this is the same process, but for Mafia. So synopsis of what the game is, overview of what I was responsible for, breakdown of the key responsibilities broken into the areas, and then trailer video, screenshots, so on. And it's just like there's some gameplay videos to that as well. But if you do this, you can literally just copy paste, and then when you add a new project, you just change the text, you change the images, you change the video. But it just means you come up with the design once rather than redesigning the page every single time. So when it comes to design portfolios, it's kind of important to think about what you want to show. And like this can vary obviously between each discipline, and like the content varies widely, but we can all use the same things, right? We all have a process for how we design things, and what a lot of people fall down on in their portfolios is they show us the finished products, and that's it. Like, I don't mind seeing a glamour shot of your level at the end with art in or anything like that. If that's the level you got it up to. But when I'm hiring someone and recruiters, they want to hire a designer, they want to see your thinking process, your thought process, and understand how you got there. Show me your 2D map, show me the roughest form of your level, like show me the block out, show me stuff like that. Don't just show me the end products like that. That doesn't tell me what you're doing, because if you're showing me an arted scene and you're not applying to be a 3D artist or environment artist, you're not really showing me what you're applying for. And ultimately, the good thing about this is you can show your processes, you can identify what went well, what you learned, where you failed. And like, it might sound weird to describe your failures. You don't have to go into detail on them, but having a section where you can summarize what you've got out of a project is quite good, because it shows you've learned from it and you grew from it. And I'm not asking for an essay here. It can literally be bullet points. It can literally be a summary of the projects. And another thing with this as well, if you're doing a personal project, every personal project you have should have a goal. On your portfolio page for it, you should explain and lead with what the goal or the objective of the project is, and then you can show me your 2D maps, your reference chemistry, and stuff like that, and so on and so forth. It's just to keep it that way. Just always think about how you can incorporate the process you went through, and not just show me glamour shots of a level. Like, I want to know what you did, a little bit of how you did it, and then start showing me your kind of iterative gears from a 2D map to 3D blocks to some GIFs or videos as well. So the image content, like again we talked about before, it can be in development shots, so the block out phase of it, finished shots. If any of you are kind of working on a game that you might ship, you might publish to Steam, or even like Itch, like anything you publish on that, like that might be more finished than like a little block out. You could post shots from that and a link to the page. Any storyboards you might do to kind of break down how the mission's going to flow, how it's going to work, and that kind of things like that will always help to keep going on. 2D maps are a little bit of a weird one, but I think they're a little bit less conventional now, but they are quite useful for quick rough outs, and they're a part of a lot of designers, especially level designers' processes. Same with diagrams and flowcharts. Diagrams might be used more by narrative design, but they kind of plot just to kind of plot out the actual plot, the narrative beats and stuff that's going on. But like diagrams can help with system design, just to think stuff out. And it's like if you were trying to be a technical designer and you were like, how do I display that on a portfolio other than just showing the thing working? Give me diagrams that you might use to figure it out. Give me screenshots of your blueprints or snapshots of your code and things like that. You can still get reference images from like every discipline, just to kind of help you think over that sort of stuff as well. Reference boards are quite good, but I'd usually just link to them as opposed to actually screenshot them all. So an example of some like very rough early like mock-up sketches. I did these in Miro. This was me plotting out a level for Desta. It was set in like a home biome. So obviously you can see I chose the zones, I highlighted them out, I rejigged it, I started adding healing tiles, spawn points and stuff like that and so on. It was made a little bit easier by that. It was a grid-based game, but this is part of my design process, right? So I can kind of show, here's the images, this is what we got, this is where my thinking started. And there's a finish shot of the level in game. So like you can see if I had this on a portfolio page, I would start with like the first one, with just the kitchen, and then you can see how I've highlighted the zones, and then you see the 3 different layout iterations I tried on paper first before I got anywhere close to this. Because this game was quite tile and grid based, like I already had a lot of the assets from art, so it was just a case of snapping them together. That's why this isn't a block out screenshot, because this was a level from a later part of the game. So as much as this is just meant I could build the level straight away. I didn't have to do the interim step of doing a block out first, then doing it. But because it was grid based, we could just rejig things. Something else I also did, this is an example of something else that you could do, is like the diagrams, the flowcharts I was talking about. So before I even built the boss fight, I went to Miro, got some post-it notes. I just started doing a diagram of like how the encounter would flow from start to end. So like whenever any dialogue would occur, what happens in wave 1, 2, and 3, like what the conditions are. So you do all this before you start building anything. And then if you do this, this is something else you could put on the portfolio that you have to show your design process. So it's just like a different sort of thing. So you can see I've gone from 2D maps, a little screenshot of the thing I built in any engine or editor that I wanted to do, where we can use flow diagrams, which would be an early design phase, but it is part of the process. And it just gives you more content to kind of go on. Also, if you don't use Miro, Miro is awesome. You should use it as much as possible. It's great. And it's a good tool for screenshot and recapturing and doing a lot of this iterative process work. Videos are another good way to do this sort of stuff. I mentioned dev walkthroughs, and I see this as a quite common thing. But it, like with level design specifically, you can do a fly-through recording of your level. And I think what would be good, you could talk over the top of it, like explaining what your design process was, what your thinking was, what you wanted to happen here, and kind of just explaining your design intent. Obviously, you can still do that in text form underneath, but if you had a video at the end of all your process and explanation, it would be nice to watch. Or you could do the inverse, you could lead with the video and then have all the breakdown text-based info underneath it, which is not as bad. But like, yeah, kind of be critical of this sort of stuff. And like the one thing I see a lot of people missing is they're just building levels or designing stuff for the sake of designing it, and it looks cool. But a lot of people forget to give themselves an actual goal, which is something you should try to always have when you're starting a new project or starting something else. Try and lead with a goal. But yeah, you can see these are just short snippets showing very specific elements of different games or like a very specific taunt. It's like reference gathering, right? You could do this with your level. It doesn't have to be a full walkthrough. If you're a system designer, you could just show me the thing working, right? It could be a short GIF. Just like it can be funny, they're quick, and it kind of goes on like that as well. It doesn't always have to be a full video. I think short snippets in GIF format work quite well now. There's so many tools used to capture them, and the moving images obviously show you a lot more of what you're actually demonstrating. So there's a lot of different tools at your disposal for what you can actually use to showcase your content on a portfolio. This is more of a way for you to generate content for your portfolio. So like if you're a little bit unmotivated sometimes to start and do personal projects, like getting involved with game jams can be a great way to kind of get you motivated and keep you going and kind of get you on board with other people. It's a good way to demonstrate teamwork, especially if you don't just solo the game jam. You can link to the game or the thing you produced, or if it's on a game jam page, you can take the game jam game and upload it to itch, and that gives you almost a portfolio page in itself, right? But like the important thing about this stuff when you do it, try and do some of that design process stuff I was talking about before, and try and log it. Just because the more you log it, the more you document stuff as you develop it, the easier it is to build the portfolio and the portfolio pages when you come to do it, because you have a lot of content to pull from. And like you would have a video walkthrough of whatever your game was, showing the game flow, possibly link to playable builds, an itch link, and there's loads of different game jams as well. And you don't have to do them by yourself or solo, which is quite nice. Another one that's important, and obviously we talked about quality of quantity, it's so more isn't always better. That sounds obvious, and by that I mean I'd rather see you focus on one high quality piece of work and finish that and have that. And if you've got that and it's really good and it's the only portfolio piece you have there, that's great, that's fine. There's nothing to go wrong with that sort of stuff. Don't worry about having loads of content and loads of different projects. Like try to keep it focused on what you want to build, and like less is definitely more in that achievement for one thing. Also, fewer projects is less pressure. It means you can also draw a line into something being finished, which is also something recruiters like to see. It's like you started something, you finished it. You didn't just start it, kind of leave it half-baked, start something else, and so on. And you can see how that's like a slippery slope to fall down on. But it's much easier if you pick one, you put all your eggs in that basket for a little bit, because you can then really shine as a designer, right? You can focus and polish that stuff up, and then set yourself a time limit. Don't work on it forever. Kind of give yourself a good cutoff point so you will finish it, and then you can move on to the next quality project as well. You don't need to put everything on there, just put the strongest stuff there, and then leave the other stuff in reserve in case you need to rejig or add some more stuff later. Scope your work. Might not sound like the funnest thing, it might be quite dry, but it is important. Like obviously we all work to deadlines. You'll have done it at uni, you'll do it in the industry forever. When you're starting a personal project, so you're starting, I'm going to build a piece for my portfolio, give yourself a time frame. Yes, it's quite flexible. You're the owner of this, but try and stick to it and manage it yourself. Try to follow a process. Like so start at the beginning with just the idea, do some ideation, do some reference gathering, make a little plan of what are you going to build a playable demo? Are you just going to do the block out? Make a plan of what it is you actually want to achieve with this stuff. Because then you're working in closer to industry conditions without working in industry. And then you can show this in your portfolio, right? So if you follow a process, you'll do the design, you'll do the 2D maps, you'll do the diagrams, you'll do the sketches, then you'll start building the level. And then if you want to go to functional, you'll then actually add some gameplay to it, depending on how far you want to push it yourself or what skills you're actually trying to show off. if you get it functional, then you get the videos and the GIFs and so on and so forth. But you can see how it's building up more and more content that you can add to a portfolio page. So the reason I kind of echo the use of Miro and stuff and logging as much as your work and following the process is I don't have a lot of my early development sketches from those early games I worked on because I changed job and stuff like that. I don't have the hard drive or whatever I had at the time. It's just easy to keep this stuff. I didn't record that much work in progress videos, like outside of reporting bugs and stuff like that. Definitely didn't make backups of my design work that often. Giving the cool moments, I would do a lot more now than what I used to. But it does make it hard now for me to retroactively go back and create portfolio pages for past projects. Like, it's okay for me now because I've worked on a lot of shit stuff, so I can go and find Let's Plays on the internet or anything like that. But I don't have a lot of the early rough process stuff that I did early on to kind of show. So retroactively trying to fix that, I clear through the content and I've started recording. I haven't updated it yet, but I've started recording a bunch of dev like playthroughs of the level that I worked on or something like that, and talking over that to make up for the missing content I don't have. Because like you say, once it's gone, it's like you've changed job or you've moved company, it's very hard to go back and actually make up for that sort of stuff. If you want to be a level designer or you've got an interest in level design at all, start looking into stuff like Blocktober, because that'll help encourage you and give you an excuse to start experimenting with this process stuff. Or you could even start a project for Blocktober, and that leads on to a portfolio piece as well. Ultimately, you're just looking for excuses to build content, especially in your early career. If you're looking to break into games and you haven't got much work right now, like to put onto a portfolio to showcase these works, just look for as many of these opportunities you have to just build stuff and make stuff. And then you can start really dissecting and deciding what should go on to like your portfolio, where it should go, taking it from then. And yeah, like little jokey comment there, but screenshot often to kind of keep things all logged. It might look rough, it might look horrible, but it just gives you an archive or a treasure trove of content to go through at the end of a project and go, right, this shows this, this shows this, and you can build a really strong portfolio piece because you have all that in development knowledge. So it's kind of this last point, and I didn't build a bunch of slides because everyone does CVs differently, but there is a lot of trends like in the industry, obviously, of text-based CVs and kind of graphic design CVs. And these are quite hard, and it's very subjective because obviously I do believe you can put personality into your CV and stuff like that, and that's all fine. But one thing you have to be careful of when you make it super graphic based, it might look cool, but it doesn't tell me a lot about you because you can't usually put a lot of information on there. The advantage, so that's one thing you've got going against you there. Also, like using, as much as we're in games and we love this stuff, using stat pips or like progress bars of like 75%, 100% or anything, or like 3 stars out of 5 for your skills without any text to back it up or tell me what you've worked on doesn't really tell me how well you can use Photoshop, how well you can use Unreal, how well you can use Unity. But a couple of bullet points of what you've done in those things does tell me a lot more about it. So it's kind of you're caught in two things between a graphic design CV, which looks nice and looks cool, versus going a bit old school now, but just doing a text-based one. And like there's a lot of kind of stuff going around right now as well. It's like, don't really need a photo of yourself on your CV. Like that's not what like you're looking for when you apply for a job. Like we care about your experience, like what your education is, where you worked, what your key responsibilities were, what you believe your strongest skills are. And that's easier to convey in text form than it is usually in image form. So like my recommendation would be, sure, you can do some graphic design work on it, make it look nice, but like bring your personality out, I don't know, in color choices, formatting, like text font style. It doesn't like you're not a graphic designer or you're not an artist, like you're trying to become a game designer here. Like I want to know the info of what you've done, what you've achieved, like what you can do. And if you do a graphic design one, you lose all the space to do that stuff because you've taken it with images or fancy formatting or fancy layouts. And as you get further into your career or like you break into the industry, you'll have more experience. Therefore, once again, don't be afraid to remove stuff, but also like you can go over one page. Like that's not a hard set rule. I wouldn't go up 2, but if you have a lot of experience in a lot of projects, then you should be able to put that into your CV. It will reach a point, like me, 10 years, like I'm 10 years in the industry now, there is stuff I leave out. Like I don't go into detail on my university degree anymore. I say I went to university, but I don't go into detail on what I did, what the individual modules were, because that just takes up unnecessary room. But yeah, always trump up your game experience, like lead with that first. Once you have like a bit more game experience, you can bump your education below that and like kind of start swapping stuff around. So it just becomes all about formatting and things like that as well to keep you with like the strong CV elements. It kind of summarizes the talk. Like I thought some of it was useful and not too rambly, but I do have some time for some questions. You've kind of got my contact information there and a link to my portfolio as well if you want to take a look as reference. I don't say it's the best one in the world, but it works for me and it's helped me get a few jobs. Basically, that's it. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Jonathan. That was great. Just so much, great stuff in there for people to take advantage of. Yeah, so I mean, if anybody does have any questions, then by all means pop them into the chat below, and we can kind of go from there. Just out of interest, what was your first role again in the sector?
In the sector, I was a QA design intern while I was at university for a small company called, they were very small at the time, called Nosebleed Interactive.
And what, how did you get that first position? Was that like for a friend of a friend, or was that through the university, or like what was that journey into that first role?
I don't want to say it was luck, but it was networking, right? And like that's one thing we all talk about in the industry is quite a lot of networking happens. So I was at a local event in Newcastle at the time where I was in university, and the founder of Nosebleed Interactive had just set up his own small business, running his own project. He had PlayStation on board during their indie sort of phase, and he was looking. He knew, like obviously I was studying game design. I was at uni, and I was kind of like showing him my skill set, and he brought me in and just let me work a couple of days a week as an intern, kind of doing practical stuff, getting into Unity, like learning how to log bugs and stuff like that. It was just a peek behind the curtain, and I was like, okay, like this trumps, unfortunately, like 90% of the stuff I've learned from my degree. But it is bad to say, but it's like there's a lot more opportunities out there like that now where you can get more professional experience. But that was the jumping point, because it meant when I graduated, the game came out a month later, so I had my first credit. So that just kind of all steamrolled from there.
Right. Yeah, of course. And I guess these days there's a lot of talk about people trying to make their own work experience, so trying to work on modding teams or try other bits and pieces. Is there anything around that? Like if you can't get that first work experience, is there anything that people should be kind of just doing to try and?
I honestly think there's no reason that you can't just do it now because of Unreal and Unity and stuff like that. And platforms like it just to upload it. It's just like the only thing I don't want to see people do is like kind of beat themselves up too much because they can't build a full game. And nobody does that really by themselves. There are the exceptions where you do see the one-man band, but that takes them 5 to 7 years to do. But like as an individual, if you're building, like I was talking about portfolio pieces here, you don't have to build a full game. You can tell me what the goal is, like what the mechanics would be, but you can just do the level with some basic functionality, like prototypey stuff, and just like don't try and build an entire game for a portfolio piece. That would be my like strongest advice. It's like it would be a great portfolio piece, but at that point, just go and show that to a publisher or something like that instead, maybe.
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense. We've got a question here from Quinn. He says, I'm currently working at EA Codemasters as a QA. That's been my role for almost a year. So obviously people come in QA a lot of the time, even though that might not be where they kind of want to go in the long run. And he's just curious as to what parts of your portfolio sealed the deal with Hangar 13. So do you know that? Do you know what was the ones that they were like?
I honestly don't. Off the top of my head, I honestly wouldn't know, because obviously I've came back now, but coming back's very different. Once you've been here before, you're coming back because I've worked with them, I've shipped the game with them, they kind of know what my skill set is. But the first time round, it was a very different role. It wasn't for a senior role, and I think it was more down to the fact that I've already been in the industry like 7 years by that point. Granted, being a lot of indie stuff, like I had a lot of ship titles, so I could show I'd done the full dev cycle on games. In a design capacity as well. So I think that was definitely the selling point. And then it comes down to the interview process as well, right? Like you having that conversation with them and being able to kind of show your design thinking, because that was a lot of my interview process. It was a full day with like 5 different people like taking me through it, and there's at least 2 of those conversations were little grillings about design, and that's how they, all right, that we understand your design process now, and it's like that sort of stuff. So that's why in the talk I was like, try and show your process of building something, because a lot of people look for that in interviews and stuff like that now.
Yeah, that completely makes sense. So yeah. So I mean, if there's no other questions below, yeah, I mean, that's a good question there. Is there a link to your current portfolio? I mean, what would be interesting if there was, if it was actually a link probably to your portfolio a few years ago before you got senior? Because I suppose sometimes I think that someone might see a senior portfolio and think, okay, that's where I need to go to, which is fine. But, you know, it would be also, I suppose, more interesting to see an entry-level junior portfolio and go, okay, so that's where I need to go to, because it might be a bit scary seeing someone who's been in it for 10 years potentially.
And I think like that's why in the talk, like I'm more pulling out the content you should be showing, because like I even know like a lot of my portfolio now is just the professional work I've worked on. Like all my personal projects, like maybe bar 2 have been taken off, and soon they'll be gone and replaced with a new personal project once I find some time, which is always elusive and gone. But it is that thing of like focus on what you're showing, right? Like, so at least I said, give me an overview, design goals, show me images, show me text, and like explain the process. That's the approach I take now, because I lost all that archived work, right? So early days of CodeSync, I have none of that design work, so I can only show the finished game. Whereas later work, I'm getting bits and more back.
Yeah, we have another fun question. Is it possible to get a QA job as a 3D artist? I've been looking for a job for a while, but I've had no I have no ability coding, I think that is. So I'm not too sure what's that. So that's from Paula.
So they want to get a QA job, but they're an artist.
Yes, I think that's what they're saying. Yes, yeah.
So like this one's a bit weird. It's like if you want to get a QA job, I don't know if you're aiming as that as like an entry role as your gateway to 3D. Like that might be another or separate conversation about it. It's not impossible, but it does depend on what your other background is, right? Like are you doing a games course, for instance? Do you have like an interest in games? Do you have some way of demonstrating technical knowledge of like how things work? Because obviously that's what QA does, right? They have to be able to decipher how something works. Is it functioning properly? Is it broken? Like find the bug and be able to report that. But yeah, it's like, it's, if you are a 3D artist primarily and doing a 3D course, like it would be a little bit different to how you have to showcase that information to a potential recruiter or something like that. It's not unheard of. Like if you're especially if you're on a degree, like if you decide you want to get into games and that's the route you want to go down, it's not impossible, but you do need to kind of show technical thinking a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's worth saying as well, you know, like the QA is a discipline in its own right.
Yeah,
it's not just a stepping stone in, and as you're saying, you know, the skills for QA are different from the skill, to a certain degree.
That's the thing to bear in mind. Like I'm talking like 10 years ago that everyone thought it was an entry role in, whereas now it's not. It's never has been really. It is a career in its own right. And like it's important to think about what it is you want to do and not think of it as a stepping stone. I'm not saying it's impossible to go in as QA, work QA for 5 years or whatever, and eventually in the company you're in decide to move over and you get that opportunity. But there's a lot of skills and a lot of career development in the QA department now itself. So I think people need to, and I'm not saying everyone does this, stop looking at it as that stepping stone. Start looking at it, is this what I want to do? Because like as soon as you do it, it could become your career. And that's what you have to evaluate ahead of time. Like, do you really want to be an artist, or do you really want to do QA? Like that's the pivot point now.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, there's now a lot of competition for QA of people that just want to do QA.
Yeah.
You know, so you're going to be going up against people who actually, you know, that's the role that they want, and they're really focused on that, and you know, that's who a studio is going to employ. They're not going to employ a 3D artist who wants to be QA. When they've got people who want to be QA, and that's, you know, and they've worked around that and know what the accountabilities are.
It's split personalities, right? Like you're saying you want to do one thing but applying for another. Like you're just going to confuse the recruiter or the company at the time as well.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to do one last question here. It's, is there something, so is there, sorry, there's a few questions that have popped up. Is there something that's more likely to land you an interview? So are there keywords to use?
So I assume this must be the CV level sort of stuff, because like that's what you're going to send to a recruiter in your cover
Yeah.
letter. It's not so much about keywords, but it's like, I guess it's just knowing the terminology of the position you're applying for, right? Like, so if you're applying for an artist or designer, so I'll use designer, for instance, you should be using phrases like, I'm really good at 2D mapping, or I'm really capable of doing blockouts, or like, I really understand systemic game design. So like, they're not buzzwords, but they're technical terms that get used in the field. So it's like using them in your cover letter and using them in your CV to it highlights your understanding of the role you're applying for. And if you're saying you're really good at a really good artist or designer and you're not using those terms, you're just saying, oh, I'm really good at design, but never mention like a design discipline or like a job role within the design then that you've done as a responsibility, you're not really going in the right direction.
Totally. We've got one here which says, should you put your QA position on your design portfolio? I'm just going to go ahead and say probably yes, in terms of if it's on your CV, that's totally
Yes,
fine.
yeah.
You absolutely should be putting any game experience you've got
So,
on your CV. How you'd present that in your design portfolio, I'm not quite sure what that means, but like on your CV, yes.
On your CV, 100%. Like I did a couple of days QA testing when I was at university. So if you were talking about what did my CV look like years ago, like it would have like QA at Technics for X number of weeks or the month I did it for, and like I would still put it on there. It just means as I got more experience, it got superseded, and that's what will happen. What you're looking at is your baseline now, and as you grow and you get into the industry or you get your jobs, you'll supersede all that.
Fantastic. And I think we've got a couple of questions here from the same person that we probably do at the same time. So how best can I showcase my problem solving skills in my game design portfolio? And then also how can I show my ability to work in a team environment in my game design portfolio? So how can I showcase working in a team, and how can I showcase showing my problem solving skills?
I'll do the team one first. So this would be based on the project I said before. So when I mentioned getting involved in game jams, you don't have to wait for an official game jam. But if you can pair yourself up with, I know you've got a friend that's an artist, and you can collaborate together. It goes between showing the blockouts and showing the end products, and any back and forth you two had in between. Like that's kind of stuff you would do. So what happens to me as a level designer, usually art will go into a level and it'll block my path or it'll break line of sight, and I'll screenshot it, draw over the top of it, and send that to the artist. And that's like how you could demonstrate your teamwork in work, and like if you're seeing who you're sending it to as well.
That's brilliant. And we've got I'm educated as a graphic designer who now works in UX UI for a marketing agency. Do you have any advice for leaning into this industry and finding any roles that might suit?
It's interesting. Lots of people are at this point now, and you do it quite a lot through into games, like want to do the career jump into games from where they are. And like the hardest thing that always comes up, at least for me, is like if you're a senior or whatever in your current industry, that's not going to cross correlate directly into games all the time, and that's where people struggle. I think UI UX is a really interesting one because we have UI UX specific design roles within our industry. They're less common, so they are one of the harder ones to find. But I think if you've been doing UI UX professionally and you can demonstrate that quite well and explain it quite well, that should help you find that job role in the industry itself. But you would need to apply for like a UI designer or a UX designer or a UI UX designer or user experience designer. It just depends what the studio is using as that role's job role.
Okay, fantastic. Well, I think we're coming out of time now. Actually, we've got a couple more questions there. So if you could potentially just type some answers maybe in the YouTube comments for some of the people that we didn't get the answer question, that would be amazing. Next up, we have got Louise from D3T. If once again, if you're looking at the little thing that's scrolling at the bottom, make sure you apply for the Intergames 50. It's a really fantastic, simple way of showcasing you and your portfolio and getting you in front of the kind of industry that you want to get hired in. Don't worry about if you think your portfolio isn't ready yet. It's never usually where you want it to be. I think it's more important just to get it in, and that the deadline for that is next Friday. So definitely go there and check that out. Thank you so much, Jonathan. Was there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap?
Just going to add to your IG50 thing. I think like you're right. It's never going to be perfect, and I think you submit it in whatever state it's in. The feedback you'll get is invaluable, right? Like it's only going to make the portfolio better overall for whatever feedback you get out of it. So don't be afraid.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time, Jonathan. That's been brilliant. I think everybody's, everyone in the comments as well is really appreciative of that, and it's so useful. If you are a 3D artist, or if you're an artist and you're watching this, then do stay watching. At 4 p.m., we've got Louise, as I mentioned, from D3T, who will go for a fantastic, a similar thing around portfolio specifically for art. Yeah, just have a great rest of the day, everyone. Thank you. Bye, Jonathan. Take
Bye.
care. Have a nice
Bye.
weekend.
You too. Bye.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. So I hope you enjoyed your little break. I got myself a cup of tea. I hope you got something as well. We're going to be joined very shortly by Louise Andrew from D3T, who's going to be talking all about art portfolios and making your art portfolio as good as it can be. Just before, I think probably most people who are watching this already know, but this whole these Elevate sessions, which are there to support you in developing your portfolio, are because we're running the Intergames 50 again this year, which is the awards for the most employable unemployed people in games, supported by One Player Mission, the recruitment organization, so OPM originally. These sessions are there to help you kind of get your portfolio up to the level that you want to get it to, so you can submit it to the IG50 awards. The deadline for those awards in terms of submission is next Friday. So you've got a good week to get into a place where you want to, you're ready to put in there. We have various different categories, from operations and production. So people who are in QA or producers or want to be QA or producers can submit their CVs, right the way through to artists traditionally submitting portfolios. So go down to intergames50.uk and just go and check that out, and hopefully give it an application. There's no reason why you shouldn't. So I am going to, without further ado, I see that lovely Louise is waiting inside our little green room here, so I'm going to add it to the stream. Hello, Louise. How you doing?
Hi, Declan. Nice to see you. Can you hear me okay?
I can. Yeah, I can hear you great. Yeah, really, really great to see you too. How have you been?
I'm all right.
For the weekend?
Yes, good. Yes, yeah. Definitely ready for the weekend. Yeah.
Yeah, I think everyone is, right? So hopefully it's nice and sunny where you're at, and it's going to be a nice ride this weekend.
Yeah, hot. Too hot. But yeah, it's good.
Good. Well, it's 4 p.m. on a Friday, so hopefully this is the last thing you're going to be doing before the weekend. Yes. So we'll make it a good one. So I'll skedaddle and let you get started. So if you want to, if you've got a presentation, if you want to give it a share now, and then I'll kind of tee all of that up and get out of your way for a bit. And then if we've got time at the end, like we did with Jonathan, we'll probably do a little bit of Q&A if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Let's just see. Window. That's going to be sharing us now, and then
Fantastic.
I'll minimize this and show my presentation.
Wait. That's grand. Yeah, I'll skedaddle, and then I'll see you at the end.
Can you see my screen now, though? Yeah, my presentation, or can you just see me?
Yes, I can see you. Yeah, and your presentation.
You can see the presentation. Okay, cool. All right, then I will make a start. Hello, everybody. So thank you for joining us today. So my name's Louise Andrew. I'm the head of art at D3T and Coconut Lizard, 2 Keyword studios, and I'm here to talk to you about how to perfect a games art portfolio. So D3T and Coconut Lizard are 2 award-winning co-development studios delivering video game development services to AAA clients. So what that means basically is we co-develop with other people. We don't make our own games, but we do work on lots of other people's games. So we get to work on some amazing games from games companies all over the world. So some of the ones you can see here, for example, Hogwarts Legacy, Sea of Thieves, Guardians of the Galaxy, Dead Island 2, Star Wars, The Skywalker Saga, Witcher, there's lots of really, really good names. That's just some of them. So what happens is that we work alongside other people. So say, for example, when a client is making a game and it's like a huge game and they can't make all of it in-house, they approach us and say, can you help us with our game? Can you help us to do some extra features? Can you do some characters, say, for example, for us? Can you take some of our environments? Can you do some of the side quests? All of those kind of things. So we work with other people, working alongside them, helping them make their games. And these are some of the amazing people we've worked alongside. So as you can see, Remedy and Warner Brothers and Sony and Sharpmob and everything. And these are just, again, just some of the people we've worked alongside. So it's a really privileged position because you end up working for one studio, but working alongside multiple other studios all over the world. So it's really fun and interesting and varied. So D3T is based in Daresbury, which is near Runcorn, halfway between Manchester and Liverpool. It's 12 years old and 163 staff. And Coconut Lizard is based in Gateshead near Newcastle, 7 years old and 36 staff. So as you can probably guess, between the two of them, or work out, between the two, we are at 199 staff. So the next person to join us will be number 200, which will be a big moment for us, I think. We merged studios. So I started at D3T a while ago, about 3.5 years ago. And we merged studios with Coconut Lizard. So now I'm head of art across both studios. And it's sort of one studio, two sites, really, is how we describe it. So, yeah, so that's us. And we have artists, importantly, because that's what I'm here to talk about, programmers, designers, production, and QA. And at the moment, we have artists on 7 projects. I think we've got 9 projects in the studio and artists on 7 of them. And the key thing about this, like talking about all the different sort of companies we work for, we also get, because we get to work on so many different projects, you get the exposure to such a variety of different kinds of games. So you get to work on different genres of games, different engines of games, different art styles, different size projects. So really huge games, really small games, different lengths of projects. Sometimes you could be just on a project for maybe 3 months. Sometimes you could be on it for a couple of years. You get to work on different IPs. So if you have a favorite IP, you can get to do that, which is really great. And you get to work with lots of different people, because the average amount of time people work on something is generally about maybe about a year, and then you change projects. That's sort of averaging. So if you imagine working with us for like 4 or 5 years, you get to work on 4 or 5 projects with all this different variety, and you get to work alongside other people at D3T and Coconut Lizard as well, and get to know the rest of the team. So it's a huge amount of experience you get really quickly just working in one place. I do tend to say D3T more often than saying D3T and Coconut Lizard, so excuse me if I do that. It's just quicker and easier. So yeah, and then just one more thing to say about us, really. So we won the Develop Star Awards 2022, which was Best Creative Provider, awarded to us by Develop, which was really, really cool. We're really excited about that. And then even more importantly, in some ways, we've won Best Places to Work every single time we've entered it, which is 5 times now. This is voted for by the team completely anonymously. They're asked, how do you like working at D3T? How do you see yourself being there in the future, in the next few years? And what's it like to be there, and how supported you feel, and is your career growing, and all of those kind of things, anonymously done. And the team have managed to say big thumbs up to us every single year, and we've managed to win it every year we've entered it. So we're really chuffed about that. So that's who the studio are and who I kind of work for. The other thing I will now tell you is a little bit about me. So I trained as a fine artist a long time ago, and then did 10 years in TV, film and theatre, creating scenery actually for TV, film and theatre, and then moved into creating digital scenery. So kind of, although it seems like a jump, actually it's using a lot of the same skills, using, artistic vision to kind of make something look realistic. So I worked at Acclaim Studios, there were 5 studios, 3 in the UK and 2 in America. It was a big company that then unfortunately went into liquidation back in about 2004, I think it was. So we all got made redundant all in one go. I then ended up at a really small studio called Embryonic, and I think I was staff member 12 or 13. So I went from a really big place to a really, really tiny place at Embryonic. So I had, I got the kind of experience of more indie dev kind of type thing. I then worked at TT Games, which is where a lot of the Lego games were made, and you may have heard of some of them. And now at D3T and Coconut Lizard, and this is some of the list of some of the games I have worked on. So 20 years in the games industry, or more than, and over 20 published titles. So that's me. Okay, now I'm going to talk to you about how to perfect your games art portfolio, which is obviously why I am here. Oh, sorry. First of all, tell you about the art team. Forgot this a little bit. So we have 44 artists. So this is my team. We have 44 artists, but covering all the different, specialities. So we have environment artists, character artists, prop artists. We have animators and technical animators. Then we have technical artists, VFX artists, UI artists, concept artists, and lighting artists. So we kind of span all the different kind of areas of art as well within our team. Okay, now portfolios. So the first part, I think, the first thing for you to do is to work out what is your superpower. There are, everybody, all artists have something that they're particularly good at and some things that they're not as good at. And I think the key for you, I think when you go, when you're at university or when you're trying out artwork, you don't really know which yours is. So just spend time working out what is the thing that you really, really love most and that you're really good at. So it might be characters, for example. So do you find it really inspiring to kind of try and recreate characters? You'd want to be good at faces. You'd want to be good at anatomy. You'd want to be interested in clothing and how to make clothing look real. You'd want to be good at hair and how hair looks and stuff like that. So characters is a specialism all of its own. Character artists don't tend to, do other things. That's what you do all day, every day, making characters and making them look, believable, or depending on how stylized they are. Do you want to do environments? Do you want to create worlds? That's what I did. I was an environment artist. And so, creating the world, creating props, creating landscapes, doing foliage, thinking about the bigger picture of the whole space that's created. I think because I came from a theatre and TV background, I liked that, creating a big environment. So environment artists really appealed to me, that you create like a new world for people. Then there's UI. So if you like 2D and graphics, so if you're more of a graphic artist, if you're interested in menu systems and functionality of the player experience and how you work through a game, what, the order of how you play it and all that kind of thing. And if you're good at 2D graphics, UI might be the thing for you. Concept art, if you're really good at drawing, if you're really good at imagining a world and coming up with something that's maybe never been drawn before or seen before, and you can put all those things together and go, what about this crazy kind of castle that lives on a ship in the middle of an ocean that's blue and green and red and yellow or whatever, and you're able to create that, and you're able to create what somebody describes and actually put it down on paper. And definitely very good at hand drawing, digital or on paper or whatever, generally digital, but really, to be a concept artist, drawing skills, super important. Lighting artists, so lighting really, I'll talk about lighting a little bit later on. I'll talk about some stuff for portfolios, but again, I think because of my TV and theatre background, I really love lighting, and I think it can make or break a scene, and you can totally change the mood of something by all the different ways you can light it. And it is really, really interesting, and it's becoming a really huge thing in games more and more and more, that there's a lot of emphasis put on lighting because it has such an impact. Or VFX, do you like something that's slightly more technical, creating water and fire and sparks and explosions and all of that kind of thing? Is that something that might interest you? Because that really adds mood to stuff and really, impresses the player. And again, because we're now on Gen 9 consoles, and, the power of the PCs and consoles we're using now are better than ever before. So now we get to add more VFX than ever before. 20 years ago, you could just add the tiniest little, just a few pixels, because the frame rates would really just drop completely. Now you can add just millions of VFX. So VFX, again, is a really, really exciting kind of big area of growth if you want to do that. So work out kind of areas that you're interested in. I'm not really going to cover animation, technical animation and technical art in this, because I think each of those has a very specific approach to portfolios. I'm going to cover these 6 really, because I think the rules for portfolios probably apply to all of these kind of things, rather than, for tech or animation. So I think, work on what is your strength? What are the things that other people say, you're really good at that, or follow your passion? So what is it that when you're working, when you're doing the artwork, what is it that you start working on and you kind of go, do you know what? I just don't want to stop. I love doing this. You get absorbed, and before you know it, it's lunchtime and you've not had anything to eat, and you know what I mean, and that kind of thing. So think about the things you would be happy doing all day, every day. Don't do the things that someone else does or someone tells you to do, or you kind of go, oh, well, that'll earn me more money, or that's what people are looking for right now. I think it's far more important to follow your passion, the thing that you were put on this planet to kind of do. I don't know whether any of you have ever heard of ikigai. It's like a Japanese kind of thing where you find the thing that you were meant to do and that you could do all day, every day, and never actually retire. And that would be my recommendation. Find what your ikigai is, what the thing is that you would do all the time. So really kind of spend some time really digging into what kind of artist you want to be. And don't be a jack of all trades and a master of none. I think there is there's a tendency, I know at universities they teach you all sorts, and that's great, and I think it's really good because then you get to try lots of stuff, and you get to explore lots of areas. But none of my artists cross over. They're all either a lighting artist or a UI artist or a character artist or whatever. They don't cross over, and I would recommend you don't, because I think it'd be very hard to be a good character artist and VFX artist, for example. It's very hard to kind of learn both to the skills required to kind of get a job in the games industry. So choose which one you want and then focus on that really, really, and throw yourself at that. Do all the research, go, watch YouTube videos, learn all the techniques, and look at other artists who are big in that area. Okay, so first of all, you find your superpower. That's number one. Number two, now think about the content. So there's two ways of approaching content. You can either show where your passions and your skills are. So just focus your whole portfolio. So you're a character artist and you love making characters. Show me the kind of characters and the kind of skills you have. Show me the things you love doing. Or you can tailor your work to target a particular studio. For us, that wouldn't work because our work changes all the time. Obviously, at D3T, we have lots and lots of different kinds of artwork and different kinds of art styles. And, we never know what we're going to be doing from one year to the next, really. So you wouldn't be able to do that with us. But some studios clearly have one very clear vision. So this image I put in here is actually about a story that I heard about an artist who a few years ago decided he really wanted to work at Codemasters on the Formula One game. So what he did is he created this absolutely gorgeous Formula One car, in really, really high res, and then he made that his portfolio. So you would click on bits of it and it would open up more of his work. So the actual car was the portfolio, and it was totally dedicated to getting his job on Formula One at Codemasters. And apparently he got his job. So that's the other way of approaching it, is to go, this is my dream job, I am going to throw absolutely everything into doing that. This is totally a choice, whether you decide, do you know what, I just want to work on this one thing. It is kind of putting all your eggs into one basket, but on the other hand, you're really showing that you're totally passionate about that particular genre or that particular game. Or you can kind of go, no, these are my passions, this is what I love doing. You could do it that way. So you choose which you'd rather do. There's no real right or wrong. So then need to think about, right, what is your, do you want to sort of focus on a particular art style? Maybe you have a thing, you kind of go, do you know, I really, really want to work on realistic or hand painted or cartoony games or fantasy games or whatever. You will know what kind of art style you would prefer. You can focus on that if you want. You could focus on genres of game. Maybe you really want to work on RPG games or first person shooters, or do you want to do AAA, or would you rather work on, sort of more casual mobile games? Again, think about that with your portfolio. What kind of, who are you aiming at? Then you can think about themes, maybe. You could sort of focus, say, for example, you really wanted to work on a horror games or sci-fi games or martial arts games or something. You could focus your portfolio on that. Just have a think about, I think the more you show in your portfolio the kind of work you do of your own volition, when you kind of like, oh, I love this kind of game, it will help people to kind of go, you'd really suit working here because that's what we do, so have a think about which of these things is important to you and what you'd like to be doing. This was, if you're going to do targeted, I would say, even if you do targeted, don't do 100%. I would still show 30% of your portfolio, some of the stuff. So you're showing you do have some variety, even if you kind of went, no, I really want to work on a Formula One game. Also show you have some ability to work on other things, because obviously Codemasters have other games, and they may want to put you on another project. So showing a little bit of sort of flexibility as well probably is also a good idea. And also have a think about, what are they looking for? What is your audience looking for? What is it they want to see? So just think about that as well, kind of when we're sort of thinking, what if I was a recruiter, what might I want to see? So sort of turn it around and have a think about what a recruiter might want to see. Okay, so you've worked out what your superpower is. You've worked out what your content is going to be, what bits you're going to put in it. Now the next thing is to actually choose which pieces of art you're going to put in your portfolio. And the important thing here is to show your best work. So very important to do quality over quantity. It's far better for me to see 3 really, really you know, knock it out of the park, fantastic, really, really great quality piece of artwork, than say 20 with some of them a bit ropey, you know, not finished, not really your best quality. Because if I see that, I'm kind of like, are you able to see the difference? Can you tell the difference? I don't need to see quantity. I don't need to see, you know, that I want to see the quality. I want to see if I gave you some work to do, that you would be able to hit the quality we're looking for. So don't worry about quantity, just focus on getting the highest quality you are able to achieve. So 4 to 6 pieces, I would say, of your most recent work. I say recent, it doesn't have to be most recent. Generally, most artists, in my experience, like the thing they did most recently the best. You kind of like each new piece, you go, oh no, that's my new favorite. And then you do a new one and go, oh no, that's my new favorite. So I'd say recent only because you probably like that one the best. But yeah, 4 to 6 pieces is plenty. We really don't need to see loads more than that. And even if you don't have 4 to 6 good pieces, just put 2 to 3. You know, it really doesn't need to be a lot. Think about the artwork you're most proud of. Think about the thing that you're kind of like, I want to show people this. I'm really, really happy with this. This is the thing I'm just so glad I made this, you know, and I just want to show the world and things. So think about that. And think about the work that you can talk about with enthusiasm and passion. So, you know, when we have artists come for interview, we you know, ask them, you know, about the work and why have you made this? What was your inspiration? Why did you, you know, what were your thoughts about this? And so as you're talking, we want to hear you kind of just gushing about it because you're so proud of it and you're really excited about it and you're really, you know, pleased with it and stuff like that. So choose the pieces that you feel that way about. Yeah, and as I said before, showing poor work does suggest a lack of artistic judgment. So get other people to look at your work. Say you've got 8 pieces and you're kind of like, I'm not really sure which is the best, which is the worst, whatever. Then, you know, get other people to help you and go, that I think these are your strongest ones, or a tutor or whoever to kind of help you and show you which ones they think are the strongest pieces, and then you can pick your best pieces. And then when you look at all of it, when you've picked all your work, just say to yourself, does this demonstrate all my skills and does it show my creativity? And these are quite different things. I think there's a lot, you know, I think a lot of, you know, when you're learning skills all the time, techniques and, you know, learning software and all of that. But one of the things we really look for in artists is creativity as well, which is a different thing, you know. So yeah, technical skills and ability to use the software and all of that is super important. But it's having creativity. It's having a mind that can come up with stuff yourself or can fill in the gaps and can jump those, you know, bridge those gaps of kind of like, I don't have all the information here, but I have an idea of how it should look. And I can sort of, because you don't always have the concept art for absolutely everything, or you don't always get given exactly what, you know, the designers don't say, I want this, this, and this really specifically. You have to be able to kind of go, okay, well, I think this could look like this. We look for very creative people. So think about, does this work show my creativity? Okay, so you've decided what your superpower is. You've decided on your content. You've picked your best pieces of work. Now it's time to show it off. So this bit is all about what content to put in your portfolio. And the key thing is more than just a few renders. We want more than that. We want to see a lot more than just a few renders of the object. So think about showing some of the background. You know, what was the original concept? What was your reference and your ideation process? Just a slide or two. So maybe a slide of the concept, or, you know, sorry, an image of a concept, and maybe just a little bit, you know, with some of your reference and your ideation process, how you worked. It's always interesting to see where you started and where you ended up. Show data maps. It's really, you know, if you're making stuff for games, we need to see that you understand what data maps are. So you understand what normal roughness and spec maps are, what they all do. By showing us, you know, we can see, yeah, you clearly understood how these should be set up. Show trim sheets. So it's you know, so when you're doing a hero asset, you quite often have a, you know, like you know, say you were making a big statue, you'd have you know, a bespoke texture that was baked or whatever. But if you're with its own unique material, but if you're making a big environment, for example, you're making a modular kit, you know, so you want repeatable, tileable textures, and you'd use trim sheets like these here. This is a trim sheet. So show that you understand this is particularly for environment art. Characters, obviously, you know, would you use baked textures rather than this? But if you were doing environment, show trim sheets. Show your UV layouts, so show that you understand what a good UV layout is. So make sure that you're showing that that it needs to be aligned, vertically and horizontally. Then you've got to use the space wisely. That you understand what textile density is, so that you understand about not having all one area really, really stretched and another area really, really compacted, so it's not evenly kind of spaced out on the grid kind of thing. And show that you understand what flipped normals are, like these red ones here. So generally you don't want flipped normals when they turn red. You want them all the other way around, so you understand that the normal map will work properly. So show your UV layouts. Also show your wireframe meshes. So like with this chair here, so show that you understand what good mesh density looks like, that there's not too many edge loops in one area and not enough in another, and bunched up and unnecessary edge loops and things like that. So show that you understand good mesh density that's appropriate for going into game, and show where the edge loops are, so you've not got unnecessary ones that are doing nothing, particularly for like characters, so if you're making a character and I don't know, you can see me on very easily on this, but on the shoulder, that you have to have edge loops in a certain way, so that when your arm goes up, all your polygons don't all bunch up into kind of like some kind of horrible thing on the, so understanding edge loops, particularly for characters, is really, really important. Okay. Sorry, just going to have a little sip of water. It's a hot day. Okay, so that's one bit about showing it off. The other thing about showing it off is show videos. Really, really useful for us to see videos. So whether that be a fly through, so if it's an environment, put a camera in and fly through the environment, or a turnaround, so say if it's a prop or a character or something, have it rotating or the camera going around it, so you see a turnaround. Because your work, when it goes into game, will be seen in real time. It'll be seen moving. It won't just be a still render. So another reason why just a few renders won't work. We need to see it in real time, moving, and how it would look in game. So when you show a video, it demonstrates the material values. It demonstrates the roughness and the speculant. You can see how it shimmers and how it shines, and where the roughness is and all of that kind of thing. So definitely worth doing it for that. Also worth thinking about doing progress animations like this one here that I've borrowed. So, just shows that it shows your journey. This was your thought process. I did this block out. This is how I started it. This is how I built it up. These are when I did the textures. Then I added some lighting. Then I added some VFX. You might not do all of those things yourself, but I think it's really useful, because sometimes you can see how the progress has gone, how somebody's changed their mind and thought, oh, this doesn't really work. That's not really any good. I think I need to move this or change that or whatever. I mean, you can see in this video that the artist has changed their mind, a few times and moved things around or added things. And that's useful. It's a talking point when you're in an interview, to kind of show the journey that you went on. So you show it from block out to finished. It shows how you work and your thought process and stuff. So in UI, definitely, again, if you're a UI artist, obviously you would show definitely still renders, but also show a video of the UI workflow. So to sort of show what the flow of the map might be, what the player's journey is, so what the order of the flow is, and how it all might work. So starting from one menu and clicking on that and moving into that, or how would you go back again, and all that kind of thing. You show your wireframes and just how it all links together. So definitely worth showing videos if you're a UI artist. Also worth showing videos if you're a VFX artist. Obviously, I'm sure that's fairly obvious, but we want to see the fire, the explosions, the water, the smoke, all these things. We want to see. You want to see the videos. And with lighting, if you're a lighting artist, you can show lighting transitioned, or you can show how you've experimented, like this one here, which is just fantastic, because it shows all these different lighting scenarios and how totally differently it alters the mood and the shape. And it, you're really, in this video, you're really demonstrating your understanding of different kinds of time of day and different moods and different atmospheres. So no matter what kind of artist you are, I think showing videos is really, really important. So just to summarize with all of those so far, you've worked out what your superpower is. You've worked out what your content is, which pieces you're going to show. You're going to pick your best work. Then you're going to show all your workings, and you're going to show videos of it. Now, the last bit of this really is that I want you to tell me about it. So I want you to tell me, when did you create it? Have it at the side kind of thing, a little paragraph about it. How long ago did you create it? Why did you create it? What were you thinking of doing? Were you trying to learn something? It could be very concise info. It doesn't need to be super, super, super detailed or anything like that. But think about what we was there something you were trying to learn? Was there a particular skill you were trying to do, or whatever? What was your motivation for it? What software did you use? I think that's always really useful to see. I used Maya, I used Substance, I used whatever, ZBrush. It's really interesting for us to see, what software you use. Definitely say if you were part of a team project. So say, for example, there were 3 of us working on this, and I just did, the left-hand wall, for example. I mean, probably wouldn't work that way, but, I did all the, the ironwork and the staircases or something. So make sure, sort of explain that I was part of a team. It's really interesting because, again, for us, that's good for us to say, oh, you work together. You've had experience working collaborative with other people as part of a team. That is how game development works anyway. We're all one big team making a game together. So actually, if you can talk about that, I worked as part of this team, this is how we all work together, talk about it on your portfolio and be prepared to talk about it at interview. It's a real bonus for us to see that you understand team working and you're not like a lone ranger who just creates everything by themselves and doesn't understand that, you're part of a bigger network, because that's most of the time not what game development really is day to day. And have a think about what you learned. Talk about, why did you make it? Were you trying to learn something? And and just talk about, I made this character because I was looking to learn more about hair, or whatever. I wanted to learn about creating this particular kind of explosion, or whatever it is. Just talk about what you learned. You don't necessarily have to put the last 2 these things. You don't have to put these in your portfolio, but I think it's worth you considering it before you go to interview. How successful do you feel it was? And what would you do differently next time? We quite often ask those questions at interview, and just to see, because we'll look at something and probably kind of go, oh, if I was doing that, I might have done this, or I might have done that. And it's interesting to hear if you would have done the same thing looking back at it now, because you know what it's like when you've made a piece of artwork and you don't look at it for 6 months because you've made a new one, and then you go back to it and you go, oh, I should have done that with it. I wish I'd started it differently. I wish I'd started from this point or this angle or whatever. So it's really good to be open and confident and feel able to say, do you know what, I would approach it differently now. I've learned this new technique. I've learned a new piece of software. I probably wouldn't even use that software next time, So be prepared to have a chat about, the work and how it goes and what you might change next time. Okay, and the other thing is, what's your motivation? So why did you make it? So I want you to tell me all about that. So did you do it, like I said before, did you do it to learn a process, lighting, hair, or foliage or whatever? What was your reason for doing the piece of work in the first place? Were you trying to recreate a scene, a mood, or an era? Was that your motivation? Because again, that's really interesting for us to find out why you were trying to do it. What was it? Was it about the software? Was it about trying to recreate something? Were you trying to match a game or an art style? Was there a particular game you've always loved, something from years ago, and you wanted to recreate that? Or have you always just loved this particular art style and you want to do that? Or were you trying to accurately capture realism? So you wanted to show and demonstrate that you understand about wear and age and usage and history. Like, for example, this anvil that one of the artists on our team, Eleanor, made, it shows that she understood exactly where the hammer would hit and where it would get the most wear and where the wood would get the most wear and how things age properly, and stuff. So it's understanding what realism might really, the impact that would have on an object and stuff like that. So have a think, put that in your folio as well. You just to the side, as I say, quite concise, just sort of saying, this was my reason, this was my motivation, this was what I was trying to achieve. Because definitely helps us when looking at portfolios to have that context. I always read, when I look at a piece of work, I always then go, oh, what was their motivation for that? Okay, so those are the main key points, but I'm now going to talk about what not to do. There are a few kind of things that I've seen in portfolios over the years. I've been doing interviews and recruitment for probably 15 years now. So I've seen the full range of the amazing to the not so amazing. So a few key things of what definitely not to do. The most important one is when you apply to somewhere, don't forget to add your portfolio link. You literally wouldn't believe how many people apply for art roles and don't have any link to a portfolio. And if we've got, say, 100 people, we don't then go back to that one person and go, oh, by the way, you didn't send a link. We haven't got time to do that, so make sure you send it. I think probably somewhere between 20 to 30% of applicants don't send a portfolio link with their application, which I just think it's just crazy, really. So that's the most important thing when you're applying somewhere. Make sure you have a link to your portfolio on on your CV or your application, however you apply. And also, if your portfolio or your show reel is password protected, make sure you send the password with it. Again, you would be surprised how many people, will send a link. Not as many as the first gotcha, but definitely people will send a show reel and with no password, and we can't open it, we can't see it, can't see your work. So I don't know whether you're a good artist or a bad artist. So make sure not to do that. Don't just, as I said before, don't just show a few still renders of an object. It doesn't give us enough information. Think about the lighting. I think this is a really key one. You've spent 10 hours or 10 weeks or whatever it is making this world, this prop, this character, whatever. You've spent a long time on it. Don't just shove one light in so that I can't see what it is. Think about good lighting. Think about, a good 3-point lighting system where I can really see it. I can really understand what it looks like. So do not underestimate the importance of good lighting in your portfolio. Really allow time at the end of whatever it is you're making to do the lighting before you get it into your portfolio. If you're doing show reels, don't make them too long. Again, some show reels go on like 3 minutes and things like that, and we just don't have the time. If you've got a lot of show reels to look through, so we would recommend 90 seconds maximum. This is probably mostly appropriate to animators or VFX artists, really. Probably most of the people don't do show reels. They more tend to do portfolios. But if you are doing a show reel, don't make it too long, because we're not going to sit through something that's longer than more than about 60 to 90 seconds. Definitely don't take credit for other people's work. It has happened. I've seen it too many times, unfortunately, where people have claimed something was theirs, or didn't make it clear, what in the scene that they're showing me was their bit. Which bit did you make? Did you make all of that world? So it's a big space hangar with a spaceship and big dock doors and characters running around, and they kind of just show this image in their portfolio, and you're like, well, what bit of that did you do? Make it really, really clear which bits you did and which bits you didn't do, and make sure you're not attempting to take credit for something that's not yours, because we have found people out when we've seen something and gone, hold on, we've seen that before, someone else has shown us that, and and kind of gone, oh, that's really bad form to have pretended that was theirs. So make sure you don't do that, and don't put low quality images in. It's you're a visual artist, you should understand good high quality, so don't just put something, a quick screenshot. Make sure you do some really nice renders so that it looks really nice and really high quality. We are all visual people, so I think you need to think about the visuals. And then the last point really is about the organization of your portfolio. So a disorganized folio, just makes it really, really hard work for us to kind of try and find stuff. So this is the folio of one of the character artists on my team. This is ArtStation, which probably you all kind of know. ArtStation is a really good template, but it doesn't have to be ArtStation at all. The thing I don't like when people make their own websites is when they have nested folders. I want to be able to come onto your portfolio and see art straight away. I don't want to have to go into a folder that's like artwork, 3D artwork, characters, character models, renders, and I've had to go through 6 folders before I even get to see any artwork. And then if I want to see something else, I've got to go all the way back out again and go into something else. It's too hard for me to see all your work. So I would say ArtStation is a really good template. Even if you make your own website, use that as a kind of good starting point. But most importantly, keep it professional and keep it uncluttered. So it's really easy. Imagine just if you only had 2 minutes to look at your portfolio, you want to be able to see as much as possible in that amount of time. Once you've got past that 2 minutes, you might be like, oh, this is a good folio. I'll look more into it, because you've already caught my attention. But you want to get my attention really, very, very quickly. I want to be able to look at it and go, okay, I can see art instantly and it all looks quite good. I'm going to dig in further and look at, kind of click on images and things like that. But I don't want to come to a portfolio where straight away I can't even see any artwork. I'm having to navigate to even get to see it. So those are some tips on what not to do. So to summarize, decide on your specialism. What is your superpower? What is the thing you would do all day, every day for the rest of your life? Definitely choose quality over quantity. Don't try and put the whole kitchen sink in there. Choose your thing. Choose the thing, that your few favorite pieces. Be prepared to talk with enthusiasm about the work that you've done. This image here is from one of our artists, Beth, and I think she'd just done it just before she came to apply for us. And when she talked about it, oh my goodness, you could tell. I mean, she loves playing the guitar, so I think it's a passion anyway. But, you know, this was her application, you know, one of her, when she applied to us as a junior artist. And she talked with such passion and such enthusiasm. We were all kind of like, you know, sort of with her in it, because she talked so excitedly about it all. Make sure you show more than just a few renders. Make sure you show the video, show your data maps, all of those other things I talked about. And don't forget to send your portfolio link. The one thing you must remember to do. Okay, so that's it. So, yeah, that's my email address. This is my LinkedIn. I will, you know, if you want to connect with me, you are very welcome to. It'd be nice to meet up with you. And these are applications for our jobs at Coconut Lizard and at D3T. We aren't advertising for any junior roles just at the minute, but we do accept speculative applications. So what happens is, if you apply to us and we're not currently looking for a junior, what happens is that Sally, who's our talent acquisition manager, she keeps a database together, so that then if we say, oh, we could do with you know, a couple of junior artists to join this team, you know, she will say, oh, I've got this database, let's have a look through all the portfolios. So we keep that database for about 6 months. So, you know, apply to us, send your portfolio in, it'll get put in that database, so that if we are looking, you know, you're not wasting your time by applying to us, and even though there's no jobs advertised at the moment. And particularly for junior roles, to be honest with you, we don't often advertise for junior roles because we get a lot of applications. So if we were looking, we would actually look for somebody who'd already picked us out and identified us and said, oh, I really want to work for Coconut Lizard or D3T. So we would choose somebody who, you know, rather than advertising whatever, we'd probably have a look if any of the people who had already kind of approached us and shown that interest in us had the kind of portfolios we were looking for. So I hope that that is useful, and I will go to questions now.
Thank you so much, Louise. As ever, I love that presentation so much. I mean, it's just full of stuff that people need to do. It's so concise, and it's so clear that you've just been interviewing people for 15 years, because it's just like, this is what we're looking for. Just do this and you'll get hired. It's pretty straightforward, you know. It's really, really fab. So thank you so much. So we've got a few questions, and if people want to put some questions down as we're speaking, we've got about 5-10 minutes to do some extra stuff. So and apologies if I find hard to read some of your questions. If you want that clarified, then just, you know, pop another question below. But so we've got the first one here is, I love prop concept art, but I noticed that they mainly hire environment concept artists to make props. Does that depend on the studio?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I would say there's not many jobs in just prop concept art. In fact, even just environment concept art, a lot of concept artists, they'll do environments, and that will include props, or they'll do characters. That's the division really within concept art. There are different kinds of specialisms even within concept art, where you might want to do a big piece of concept art that's like, you know, showing the mood and the atmosphere, but you also need to be able to do the breakdowns of what does that boat look like, you know, what break it down so I can actually see the detail and all of that. So I think you need to be maybe a bit more versatile than just doing props. I would advise trying to do props and environment.
That's great. And what happens when you target a studio and they don't want to hire you?
That's really awful. Yes,
it's
very sad.
Does that kind of affect? Does that look bad for other studios? I suppose they wouldn't know the other studios.
They wouldn't know. No, they would never know. And no, they would never know. And you could do two things. You could ask for feedback and get, you know, be persistent and kind of go, no, I really want to work with you. What do I need to do more? Or you could just add a bit more variety to your portfolio and kind of go, okay, so that didn't work, but what else could I do to kind of bolster and show a bit more variety, so that might make me more open to other people. But it could happen. Like I said before, it is putting all your eggs in one basket. So it's a slightly risky strategy, but it does work for people sometimes.
And how often should someone be updating their portfolio? I mean, I guess it's when you've got good new work.
Yeah, really, when you've got a new piece of work that you're happy to show, really. I think if in your portfolio you have not updated it for a year, I mean, if you're working for a game studio and everything's under NDA, that's fair enough. But if you're someone actively looking for work, I think you ought to show that you've got something, kind of, you've been working on a new piece recently-ish. Yeah.
I think you mentioned this when you were talking about ArtStation, but for a 3D model of texture, do you recommend better portfolio websites like ArtStation or Showreel? So,
Yeah,
yeah,
ArtStation's great. I mean, there's,
yeah,
I think,
yeah,
ArtStation is really good, but if you want to make your own, that's fine. I don't feel you get brownie points for having made your own website, particularly. For me, it's just about me seeing the work. So whatever way is simplest for me to see your work. So, yeah, but yeah, and any of those kind of things really. But yeah, I would go with ArtStation, I think.
okay.
I'd say 90%, at least 90%
Yeah.
of people who apply are on ArtStation.
Absolutely. Okay. So this is a question here. So, hi, I studied concept art and illustration for 2 years and worked as a 2D artist freelancer for an indie studio. I recently discovered my passion for environment art, but noticed that many studios are looking for people with 3D experience for this position. I only know how to use Photoshop very proficiently. What should I do? I feel a bit confused.
Yeah. So, well, you're going to have to learn the 3D software. If you want to be an environment artist, you're going to have to kind of dig in. Get Blender, it's free. Start learning the 3D software and, sort of learning the processes. If you're interested in 3D, there's not many places would take you on without, and with having to train you up, and stuff. So I think you're going to have to invest in yourself for a period of time to get yourself up to speed with creating the environments. Or, I mean, the alternative, if you get a job as a 2D artist somewhere that also has 3D and just sort of say, look, I wouldn't mind kind of learning this. Can you kind of support me and help me along the way? But yeah, whether someone would, how much they'd do that, I don't really know.
Yeah, and it's a similar question here around, how you made the transition into 3D. I think this person's kind of interested in making the transition, but doesn't want to go back to uni. And I think that's fine. You don't need to go back to uni to make it,
no.
That's do it. I mean, if anything, that's probably
yeah,
a waste of 3 years, to a certain extent,
yeah.
if you're making that transition in. So, yeah,
I think,
how did you find? I mean, it must have been harder, I guess, when you were making the transition to 3D. But
yeah, I did go back. I went back for 1 year I did an MA, so it was a 1 year MA, but this is back in 2001, so it's a long time ago. But no, I really don't think you need to at all. There's no way in which I wouldn't recruit someone because they haven't got a degree, or haven't got the qualification. It's all about portfolio, but which is why I'm here today. It's all about your portfolio. Your portfolio is the most important thing. In fact, my son, who is 19, wants to do what I do, and he's not going to uni. He's working on his portfolio, and just going to work on it and get a good portfolio and then apply to people, because that's all you need is the artwork. You don't need the degree. You just need, the knowledge kind of thing from the artwork.
Absolutely. So here's quite a good question actually around when showing texture work that uses models that you haven't created yourself, how would you recommend showcasing that in the portfolio? Do you credit the original artist or show the textures only? So which one?
Yeah, both, all of those. So I would sort of show the object with the textures on, and then show the texture itself, and then just in the notes say, I didn't create the object, I created the texture. Yeah, there's no problem in that at all. And like I say, it shows you work collaboratively, and I think that's good.
So with your let's try to think. So I'm when applying for 3D environment art jobs, is there any key or specific things you look for? So I suppose the presentation you've just done kind of sums all of that up, really, doesn't it? I mean, it's very clear what
good
artwork
artwork,
you're looking
number
for,
one.
but yeah,
good artwork. And I think we look for people who can do a variety of things, really. If someone was very, very stylized or very kind of like just did, say, manga characters, it's not going to work for our studio. We have, our character artists need to be able to do lots and lots of different kinds of things, really. So, yeah, if you can, for us, we need to see variety because of the variety of work we do.
This one, does it matter how long a portfolio piece has taken me to make? Sometimes I worry I'm not fast enough for industry.
I think be honest about it. Don't pretend you did it in a week when it took you a month, because you're just setting yourself up, to then be panicking when you start. I think put in how long it took you. The more art you work you make, the quicker you'll get. Also, we don't expect our junior artists to be as fast as someone mid-level or senior. We understand that it takes longer, but you get quick. If you're doing it day in, day out, you get quick very quickly. And once you're working with the studio, you pick up tips from the other artists you work alongside. So then you end up, like doubling your speed because you're getting all these tips all the time. So just be honest, I think, always.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's amazing how much faster you'll go when the deadline's there. Suddenly, you'll learn quickly. Yeah. So I think we just got one more question here. So it's from a concept artist, and saying, but my portfolio is a bit mixed in terms of having a lot of 3D and experimental content, like VR or animated elements, and the regular 2D stuff. What roles should I go for? I like to work on literally anything that involves games. Well, I don't know exactly what to focus on since none of it is game ready, just visual. So this pertains back to
the very first bit. Yeah,
which one is it? Yeah.
Do you know what? I think if you actually like all the different areas and you can't really decide, I'd work for an indie game dev company and do all of it. Work with just 2 or 3 other people, work with a designer and a programmer, and do the whole thing. And use all those skills. And you might find indies for you, and you love having a bit of what's the word? Playing a part in all the different aspects. And maybe that's exactly where you should be. So don't, if you love all of it and can't decide, do that.
I think that's really great and interesting thing to talk about, isn't it? Like, I mean, you might not be right for working for a big studio is not necessarily the holy grail of everyone. No. Like, it doesn't need to be. There's lots of different options there, around that kind of stuff. And actually, if you're someone who likes doing all those things, likes experimenting, doing this stuff, even, if you even more broadly think out of games as well, I mean, theatre is doing loads of stuff around immersive stuff at the moment. Yeah. Just tons of industries. Every industry is doing kind of interesting real-time stuff. Agencies, creative agencies, all kinds of things. So, I think sometimes people don't understand how powerful the game skills they have are.
Yeah, and transferable
everywhere everywhere at the moment. And I just wouldn't wait around for a job in games necessarily, because it can take you ages to go and do something else somewhere else and then come back to it maybe. Why not? I mean,
there was someone I was sort of doing some work with last year who was worked in fashion, and they bringing games into fashion. So like. In the fashion industry, really adopting kind of using Unreal to sort of demonstrate, clothing and all that kind of stuff. It's all different areas, like you say, like theatre and everything, all using game technology. So who knows where it might take you?
Absolutely, totally. And then how do you find studios that match you, like in terms of what you want to do?
Good question. I guess just doing research, really, looking at games you like and seeing which studio made it probably is a good starting point. But then outside of I mean, on the UK website, if you go to, UKIE, the UK website, they show you all the UK games companies. There's like a map, an interactive map of all the games companies in the UK. So you could just kind of go, I'm going to click on each of them and go to their website, see what they do, the kind of work they do, what their culture seems like it's like, and, just to do some research into all the different games companies. Yeah.
Okay, fabulous. Fantastic. I think we've one more question, and I think we'll wrap up. So, I'm a resident of the EU, but not UK. Do you consider international applications?
We don't have I think we have one person in the studio at the minute who's not in the UK, and they were in the UK and they moved. The kind of the official policy, because we're part of Keyword Studios, which I didn't really cover, but we're part of a bigger network. And if there is a keyword studio in that country, we can accommodate it. I have to say, as a junior, someone new to the industry, I would recommend you're actually not only in the country, but in the studio, because you pick up, we have at any one point, we have at least a third of the art team are in the studio. So you're picking up stuff, because you're next to them all day, every day. We try and encourage newer members of the team to be in, get to know people, get immersed working alongside people. So probably not really for someone new to the industry. I would try and find a company near you so you can actually go in and work alongside people.
Absolutely. Actually, I can just answer this. There's a lot. There's someone saying that I think it was the person that we were saying go and work in an indie. Where would they find some? There's actually a jobs board called workwithindies.com.
Okay.
So for that particular person, if you're looking for indie jobs, go there. There's loads of great jobs that are just in indie studios.
That's brilliant. I never knew that.
So, yeah,
make a note of that.
They're fantastic as well. So they're brilliant. Brilliant. Okay, Louise. I mean, that's just fantastic as ever. You're amazing. Brilliant presentation. Love it. I mean, so many people have got so much from that, as they always do. So we just really appreciate it, and just go out and enjoy the sunshine and have a nice weekend, I guess. Now.
Thank you very much. Oh, thank you. Yeah, really nice to see you, and thank everyone.
Pleasure.
Good luck to everybody. Yeah, I hope you all find jobs soon.
Thanks, Louise. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
So thanks, everyone. So we're kind of halfway through now. So we're going to be starting in about 7 minutes again with Nikki Armstrong, who's going to be talking about programming roles, and the kind of broad range of different types of programming roles, and what kind of I guess it's not really a portfolio. Again, there is a portfolio in the same way. Some of those roles can be portfolio based. What you should be kind of doing to create something that's really exciting for studios to see. She was the former senior programmer at Ubisoft Reflections, and currently is Unreal developer at Flaming Fell Studios. So she'll have lots of interesting things to talk about. So yeah, she's going to be kicking off in just over 5 minutes. And then we're going to be wrapping up the day with James Gallagher, who is the head of community management at Keyword Studios. And Keyword Studios is like humongous and made up of lots of different studios all over the world. And he's head of community management. So if you're interested in community marketing, any of that kind of stuff when it comes to the kind of the whole game making process, then stick around for that too. So James is at 6. So I'm going to take a break for 5 minutes, maybe get another cup of tea, and I'll see you in a second.
Hello. I think you might be muted.
Have I just been talking silently for ages? Oh my God. How embarrassing.
I thought it was me. I was over here trying to fix everything, and I checked the YouTube stream as well, and I sent you a little private message, but you were muted that whole time.
I said a bunch of amazing things that obviously nobody heard, unfortunately. Mainly talking about my second cup of tea, so it wasn't.
I mean, that's important.
It wasn't particularly fascinating, but I'm glad you said something, and I could see all the comments now popping up. Saying that no sound was coming through. So sorry to everyone watching. It's probably for the best though. Yeah, thank you so much for coming, Nikki. Really appreciate your time. I can see there's some sunshine on your face as well. So thank you for doing too much. I know what you mean. If I open up my curtains, it beams in it.
Yeah, I've got the blinds shut.
Blinds, yeah.
Yeah.
Keep it out. It's best to keep it out. Thanks for doing this at 5 o'clock on a Friday. Really appreciate it.
It's all right.
I know that everyone listening is going to get a lot out of it. So really, really appreciate your time. If there's any slides or anything you want to share, just go ahead and share them now. And then as soon as that's on my screen, I'll kind of get that up, and then I'll shift out and let you crack on.
Perfect. I am going to do that then. We should have some slides, hopefully. Do we have them?
We do indeed. There we
go. Fabulous.
Fantastic. Right. Okay. I'll let you get on with it. I'll see you in about 45 minutes.
In a bit. Perfect. We'll see you then.
Bye.
Bye. All right. Hello, everybody. My name's Nikki Armstrong. This is Growlith. He's my dog, and he is going to be here with us for the whole talk. He will probably bark as well. He just likes to be wherever I am, which is unfortunate because it's approximately 26 degrees in here. It's very warm. So yes, I am currently lead developer at Flaming Fowl Studios. And I'm going to be talking about how we perfect a technical portfolio, or what you should do include. And I'm kind of going to stray away from that and talk more broadly about the whole kind of application process as well. So we'll crack on. We'll start maybe with a bit about me. Let's go to the next slide, if we can do that. There we go. So I'm a programmer. I've got about 15 years professional experience. So I've been a programmer a very, very long time, but 10 of those years were in the tech industry. So not in games at all. I see other people put little logos of the games companies they've worked for. So I've put little logos of the other companies that I've worked for. So I worked on web development stuff. I worked on in the film industry for a bit. I've worked on embedded technology. I made the tap cards that get you on buses, did the Virgin Australia mobile app for booking flights. I worked on mining simulators. I've done a huge amount of stuff. I feel very, very lucky to have done as much stuff as I have. But what I really, really, really wanted to do was work on games. So after I'd done that for about 10 years, I was like, Nikki, you're gonna have to figure out how to start working on video games, or you're gonna have to stop talking about it. So then I worked at Ubisoft. So I was at Ubisoft for a few years. Reflections. So I'm in Newcastle in the UK. I'm not originally from Newcastle. I had to move over here from Perth, Australia, in order to work in the games industry. So giant move. Growlith came with me. Then I switched from AAA. I moved to an indie studio. So I was lead programmer at Silver Rain Games for a couple of years. And now I'm lead Unreal developer at Flaming Fowl Studio. So lots and lots of different stuff. Importantly for this conversation, I've been a lead for a couple of years now. And I've been a mentor for much, much longer than that. So I've been sort of in charge of teams for longer than I've had the lead title. And I've been interviewing and making hiring decisions for about 4 years. So I've seen a lot of portfolios. And I've also been rejected from about 1 billion jobs. So I've had to hone my application process over the years as well. So let's crack on. Takeaways from my talk. Not just your portfolio, but how to make your entire application stand out kind of more holistically. Your portfolio only makes up a tiny bit of your overall application, and all of it kind of has to be solid in order to get your application noticed. I'm sure you'll appreciate it's very competitive industry, and it's a competitive role in programming. So your whole application needs to stand out. But we will talk about portfolio. So what you need to include, what you shouldn't include, and do you even need one? What situations do you need one, and in what situations can you not have one? That kind of thing. So these are my takeaways. So step one, if you can hear, my dog has decided that it's a really, really good time to start playing with a ball behind me. So if you can hear him, That's what's happening. So how do you get hired? We talk about your portfolio being a little bit of it. There's a lot of stuff that goes into an application process. So your step one is just get your application noticed, get it in front of the people that you want to get it in front of, and have them looking at it seriously. And lots of things are going to go into an application. So your CV, your cover letter, any supporting material that you have, and your supporting material might be your portfolio, but it might be web links. So if you're a programmer, you're going to have a GitHub or a Bitbucket, or maybe you've got a dev blog, maybe you've got things like that, and your socials. So maybe you post on Twitter, or maybe you've got a LinkedIn. And so all of that is going to make up your application. And something that I think is very important to remember is that even if you don't include a link, if you have a public LinkedIn, particularly LinkedIn, we are probably going to look at it. So make sure that everything that could be found about you is findable and it's in a good state. And because all of that is going to make up your application process. Basically, anything that you include, I am trying to assess if you can do the job. And games positions receive a huge number of applicants, like just a crazy number of applicants a lot of the time. And you need to make this as easy as possible for me to kind of instantly, not instantly, that's mean, but understand in a reasonable amount of time if I think that you can do the job. And then I will look into your application in more depth. But your kind of initial impression, it needs to be easy to digest the information that you're giving me. Because I have a lot of applications to get through, and I need to be able to quickly kind of sift them into like, oh, I want to talk to this person. I love what they've shown me. And like, oh, I'm not really sure about this person. I need to be able to sift that quite quickly. And your portfolio is only one aspect of that. And in my opinion, it's not the biggest aspect for a programming job. We've heard talks earlier today from design and from art. And in those cases, your portfolio is the biggest thing. That's the main thing that is being used to assess whether or not you can do the job, is what you have put in your portfolio. So work you've done before. For programming jobs, I don't think that your portfolio is necessarily the biggest deciding factor that I'm using to figure out if you can do your job. But it does depend on the situation. So we're going to talk about that as well. So step 2, how do we get hired, is the interview process. So assuming your application is stellar, then we're going to get to interviews. There's usually 3 interviews. I like to do 3 interviews because I don't like to give people a technical test the first time that I meet them. So I'll give them like a getting to know you. Do my goals align with your goals? Are we a good fit? That's usually a short chat, and then a technical interview, and then there'll be an HR interview. So boring stuff, when you're going to start, how much money do you want, all of that. So it's a big process to try and get hired, and it can be quite daunting. So how do we make our application the best that it can possibly be? How do we get our application noticed? So I think a lot of people will talk about your application needing to stand out. And different people are going to interpret that in different ways. For me, for your application to stand out, that doesn't mean make it the prettiest application I've ever seen. It doesn't mean put like flashing GIFs all over it. It doesn't mean that it needs to be like beautifully graphic designed. It doesn't mean you need to pay somebody to make a website for you. That's not kind of what it means to me for your application to stand out. For me, for your application to stand out, I want it to be clear and concise. I want it to be easy for me to figure out who you are and what you do and what you're good at and what you want to do with your career. Like, does what I'm offering match what you want to do with your career? So yeah, and I want you to put your most relevant experience at the top. So it's really cool if you have worked a long time sort of in other jobs, or maybe you worked on checkout somewhere, or you've done some volunteering. That's really, really cool. And I want to know that stuff, but I don't want that at the top. What I want at the top is, what programming experience do you have? And how do you think that programming experience is relevant to what I need in the job that I'm trying to fill? So yeah, clear and easy to understand information is more important to me than an eye-catching template. And it's very, very important. I'm sure everybody else that's given a talk today and everybody you speak to will say that the most important thing is to have a custom cover letter for each position. So why this job specifically? Why this company? What do you know about me or what I'm doing or where I'm working? And why do you want to work at this company? And why you? Like, why do you think that you specifically have all of the qualifications that you need to like fulfill this role specifically? So if your application is not clear, if your CV, if your resume doesn't have like isn't easy to understand, or your cover letter is not easy to understand sort of who you are and what you're looking for and what you're good at, then a lot of the time I won't even click through to your portfolio. I'm not going to click through to it because I can't figure out from your application like why you would be able to fill the role that I'm looking for. So a lot of the time I might not even click on your portfolio. So your application, your CV and your cover letter in the first instance, like that is the important thing in the first instance. And then secondary to that for me is going to be your portfolio. So if your CV looks great, your cover letter, you sound really interesting and qualified, and you know, you've researched the company a bit, that kind of thing, then I'm going to click through to your portfolio and be like, okay, like cool, like what have you worked on? What have you done? Like what can I understand about you? If you don't give me a portfolio, or I do click through to your portfolio and I can't really figure out the information that I need, this doesn't necessarily mean I'm not going to interview you, but it just means that that's like not the primary place that I'm basing my decision on, or you might be underneath somebody else who it's really obvious from their cover letter like what they're into. So in my opinion, that's much more important than a portfolio is your initial sort of application. So with that in mind, do you even need a portfolio? There are lots of ways for your application to get noticed. There are also lots of other ways to assess your coding skill. So programming is not flashy like art or animation. I know that there are a lot of hashtags on Twitter, like Screenshot Saturday and things like that, and the programmers get a little bit down about that because the stuff that we have to show is not necessarily that exciting. And also, making content for your portfolio is time consuming, and that is a luxury that not everybody has. Maybe you have to work while you're at university, so you have never done a game jam, or you've never done a side project. I've never done a game jam, not ever, because I worked the whole time I was at uni. I had weekend jobs, and after university, I was working in the evenings. And so I don't have a portfolio, and I still don't have a portfolio. But I've then had to show my programming abilities in other ways. But if you do have a portfolio, it may be easier to get your application noticed. Some places are definitely looking for evidence of side projects. Some places will not look at you if you don't have evidence of doing side projects. And that is a different discussion for another time about how healthy that is for the industry. But some places do want to see that you do side projects. If you don't have a degree and you're self-taught, that's completely fine. I would love to speak to you. But I will need to see evidence of the self-teaching that you've done. If you have a degree, then it's less likely that you'll need a portfolio for me to sort of look at your application. If I can see that you've got some university projects like listed on your CV, or I can see that you've got a degree from a university that I know about, and I know that degree is kind of good, or I've hired another person from that degree, maybe I won't look at your portfolio, and maybe I don't need to. But if you're self-taught, then I need to see what have you done to teach yourself? Like, what are you excited about? What have you learned? How have you spent that time? Also, if your portfolio is clear enough, you may be able to skip the coding test, which everybody is excited about. Coding tests are a very bad way of assessing a candidate. And so I've definitely waived the coding test. I've skipped that for candidates that had a really good portfolio where I could really see that they were very, very good at what they do. And I didn't need to test them any further because I could tell from their portfolio that they could code and do what I needed them to do. Bearing in mind, though, that larger places will have a standard interview process, and everybody will get a technical test to kind of level the playing field. So it's not going to circumvent the process in every place, but it might do. So it is worth putting in the effort if that's something that you want to do. So it's a trade-off whether or not you need a portfolio as a programmer. If you're self-taught, yes, absolutely. If you have a degree or you've got experience from another job, then I would emphasize that over emphasizing your portfolio. And I would rather see no portfolio than a bad portfolio. So if you send me a portfolio and I can't figure it out, or it's got lots of stuff in it that's not relevant, I would almost rather you didn't send that to me at all. And I will assess whether or not I want to interview you based on other factors. So if you do have a portfolio and you do want to show me a portfolio and you want it to be as good as you can be, what should we put in it? Emphasize the code over anything else. If you want to be a programmer, emphasize the code like over and above anything else. You may not have a portfolio in the traditional sense. It might not be a website that you've created or anything like that. If you don't, that's fine. Just send me your GitHub. Just send me a plain link to your GitHub and I'll have a look at some projects that you've done. Maybe you followed some tutorials and you've amended those in some way. You've added extra bits to them and you've whacked that up on GitHub publicly for people to have a look at. I would love to see that. Or on your portfolio, if you make a website and you want to show like, hey, I did this game, I made it for a game jam, or I made this on the side, it took me 2 months or whatever. Show me code snippets. So show me interesting problems that you've solved and how you solved them. So what game did you make? Has it got an interesting jump mechanic? How did you write that jump mechanic? Has it got an interesting like perception system? Does the enemy like detect you? Is it a stealth game maybe, and the enemy detects you in an interesting way? How did you write that algorithm? Explain to me what problems you've solved and how you've solved them, and show me bits of that code in your portfolio. That's what I want to see. I promise you that programmers that are looking at your portfolio want to see code, and they're excited about seeing code more than they are excited about seeing a video or a screenshot or some pretty art or anything else. I promise you programmers are more excited about seeing code. Make sure that it's your code. So in the same way that Louise, who spoke before, mentioned that, you know, make sure it's your art that's in your art portfolio. Make sure that it's your code. It's totally okay if you followed a tutorial to get started. We all do. 98% of my day is Googling stuff. But really make sure that I know this bit was a tutorial and I did this. And then when I finished the tutorial, I extended it in this way and I built this other thing. And this is my code that I have written, and this is code I got from the internet. So it's important to be very, very clear. If you're not, you're only shooting yourself in the foot, because you'll say that you can do XYZ thing and then you get the job and you won't be able to do it. So be very, very clear. And again, as everybody has mentioned in the previous talks, I'm not expecting a junior to be the best programmer that has ever existed. I'm not expecting you to be at the same level as a mid-level or a senior or anyone else. My expectations are very reasonable of where your level should be at. So I don't need you to lie or sort of bend the truth to make it look like you can or have done things that you haven't done or that is other people's work. So yeah, other points on the slide, screenshots and videos of games are very, very cool, but don't show me your relevant skills. So I need to see your relevant skills. So talk about your process, what you implemented, what you might do differently next time. Maybe, so one of my favorite things to do is do a self-code review. So I will write some code, build a thing, and then 6 months, a year later, however long later, I will go back and I will try and redo the same project with what I've learned in the meantime. So that's a very cool thing to talk about in your portfolio. I built this thing, and then later on, I did a code review of it with like new knowledge that I learned, and I figured out, oh, I wrote this for loop, but actually that's, you know, this algorithm, and I've written it in this way now, or I've learned how to use this tool, or I've changed engine, I've made it in a different engine, and why did you do that? Do you think this engine's better than that one? Or, you know, whatever reason. Anything that is showing me your thought process, that you're thinking critically. So as programmers, we're problem solvers. We need to be able to think logically and critically, and that's almost as important as showing me the code, as well as showing me your thought process and how you're solving problems and how you're taking sort of an idea, a design, and turning it into a real tangible thing that you can play. So most important thing is just emphasize the code and your coding skills. Emphasize your skills. Secondly, so for group projects and for game jams, they're very, very cool, and they are really good at showing me that you can work in a team and that you can work with other disciplines, and that maybe you can do things like communicating technical information to less technical members of the team. So being able to explain what you're doing to somebody who's not a programmer, that's really, really important. But be very clear about your role on those teams. So I see portfolios sometimes where a person might have done 3 game jams, and for 2 of them they were a programmer, but for one of them they acted as the producer for that project, or they acted as the artist, or they did sound or whatever. And it's totally cool if you can do more than one skill. But if you are applying for a programming role, I want to know like where you fit as a programmer. So it's less important to me that you did very, very cool sound on a project. So maybe don't include that one, or put it in a different section, or just de-emphasize it so that it's really clear to me who you are and what you're good at and what you want to be doing. Be clear about your experience and your skills. I think somebody else has already also said this today, but we tend to gamify our portfolios, and so there'll be like a progress bar or a star system. That doesn't really tell me anything because I don't know who you are comparing yourself to. So if you say you've got 3 stars in C++, I'm not really sure what scale that is on. I mean, I've been programming in C++ for a long time, and I don't know if I would say that I had 3 or 4 stars in C++ because it's a complicated language and there's a lot to learn. So just say I've got 2 years of C++, only in Unreal Engine and only at university, if that is true for you. Or you can say, I've got 2 years of C++, I know Unreal Engine, and I've made some native projects, so some projects that didn't involve a games engine. Or I have this much experience in C#, I've used Unity, I've used Godot. Whatever is true for you, just be very, very clear about what that is. So instead of saying 4 stars C#, explain to me what it is and how you've got that knowledge. And don't spread yourself too thin. So this has also been a really common topic in the other talks. If you want to be a programmer, concentrate on being a programmer, and show me the things you've done to learn how to be a programmer. I see a lot of people coming through who maybe want to be in games but are not really sure where, or they don't really care. They just want to be in games doing something. And so they'll have a lot of skills, they'll do a lot of stuff, they'll maybe do a big solo project where they do everything in the game, and that's very cool. It's cool to learn how to do that stuff. But I promise you, even in very small studios, we want someone who does what they do and only what they do really, really well. Especially in small studios. If I've only got the budget to hire one programmer, I want that programmer to only be a programmer. I don't want that programmer to be kind of a good programmer, but also kind of a good audio guy, and also kind of a good designer. So that's what I'm looking for. It's very unlikely that you'll get a role in a studio where you will be sort of cross-discipline. So don't spread yourself too thin. Concentrate on the thing that you want to do. Pick something to specialize in and do that thing and get really good at it. The other thing that I would say is, in the same vein, if you're concentrating on being a programmer, concentrate on trying to get roles as a programmer, even if that means that those roles are not in the games industry. Again, we've already spoken today in the other talks about how it's very outdated advice to say go and get a job in QA and kind of start in QA. It's very unlikely that if you're in QA, you will be doing any programming. And if you are, it's likely to be very, very different to the kind of programming that you would be doing as a gameplay programmer or an engine programmer. So if you are going to get work experience, it's more relevant for me looking at your application if you have programming experience, even if it's not in the games industry. So if you have programming experience and you've made worked anywhere, literally any other company in the tech industry rather than the games industry as a programmer, I can see that you've got good, solid programming skills, rather than if you've worked in the games industry, and that's kind of relevant, but not as a programmer doing something different. That is a lot less relevant to me. So it just comes down to the same point of just pick something that you want to specialize in, concentrate on that, and make that the foremost thing that is in your portfolio. And then the last thing to emphasize is emphasize you. So emphasize you. Who are you, and what are you good at, and what are you interested in? I want to know that the job that I'm offering you is going to help you grow in your career. So I want to know that I'm offering you something that you're really excited about, that is where you want to be. That's not just I want a job, I want any job. I want to be able to help you in your career. So emphasize who you are and what you're looking for, and don't be afraid to be very honest about that. So I said earlier, I don't expect a grad or a junior to be the best programmer or have tons of experience. So don't overemphasize that. So I see a lot of portfolios again coming through that say, oh, I was the lead programmer of this company. And when I actually dig into that, it's, the company is not a company. It's not a registered company. It's the name of the team that you had when you did a game jam. And that is just kind of disingenuous at best, because lead programmer is a role. It's a title that implies that you have management experience and you've maybe worked in a bigger studio and you've worked on a team, and you've also got production experience. So you've done scheduling and scoping, and maybe you've been involved in hiring decisions, and maybe you've been involved in different conflict resolution, like lots and lots of things that implies, which is experience that you won't have. So don't overemphasize that, but do be proud of your work. So it is incredible if you were the only programmer on a team of only 4 people that put out a playable game and it only took a week. That's incredible, and that's a really, really cool thing that you've done that I want to know about. But I want to know about that honestly. I want you to be proud of the bits of that are true. So I want to sort of celebrate with you that, like, yeah, I was the only programmer on a 1-week game jam and there are only 4 of us and we released this game and it's really, really cool and it does all of this stuff. That to me is way more interesting and way more helpful in discerning where your skill level is at, than having to sort of dig through and figure out if this is a company that actually exists that I can go and find on Steam or whatever. So yeah, emphasize you, emphasize the code, emphasize the skills, and emphasize you. And that's basically the end of my talk. That's not quite 45 minutes, because this talk was originally only 10 minutes long. So I don't know if Declan is even around to come back.
Oh yeah, I'm around.
You are.
I'm around. Of course, I'm around.
I was really worried.
No, you're not on your own.
15 minutes.
I don't just, when I say I'm away for 45 minutes, I don't just go away for 45
good.
minutes. I'm still here.
Excellent.
I'm riveted.
Excellent. Good.
It was brilliant. I mean, it's very similar to, obviously it's very similar to the other talks we've had today. It's like, if you just do this, you'll get the job. So do this.
Yeah, there is no silver bullet. There is no, like, unfortunately, I can't just be like, here is the template and fill out the dot points and then I will give you a job. Like, that's not how it works. But there are definitely common themes that I was listening to the other talks as well. And there are definitely common themes throughout of, like, pick a thing that you're good at and stick to that. Don't overemphasize skills you don't have. Like, be very, very clear, only include relevant information. It just is, all disciplines are the same.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, we've got a little bit of time for questions, if anybody's got any questions down here. Somebody just jumped in straight away. Any chance of getting a quick feedback on a portfolio website? So there you go.
Oh my goodness.
Some work for you straight away at some point.
Just some extra. Is there a I don't know if there is a, because I know if I say yes, I will get 20 of them. Yes. Is there a more official way of doing that through Intergames, like on your Discord or anywhere? Like, are there more than just me?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, like, either people can post on the programming channel of the Discord, and if you can be there, Nikki, for a little bit, and maybe give a few responses to those that come through. That'd be fab.
Yeah, definitely. So the only reason I say that is because I'll be in there. I'm in the Intergames Discord, but there are also, like, loads of other, like, industry professionals in there as well. So if I'm not there, I'm sure there'll be somebody else. So, but I can definitely be in there.
Brilliant. Okay, great. So we've got a question up here. So, do stats from challenges completed on something like LeetCode look good, or do you not really care?
I care that you have done that. I don't necessarily care what your stats are, because again, it's kind of an artificial way of measuring your programming skill. Some companies will give you essentially a LeetCode test or like HackerRank or something like that as their technical interview. I don't know whether that's kind of the best way to go about it. So I don't necessarily care what your stats are or how good you were at it, but I care that you tried. I care that you have tried something different to try and improve your skills. So that's definitely something that I want to know. Like, hey, I went on LeetCode and I've tried out these things and I got these scores or whatever. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. I'm not going to pretend I know what LeetCode is. So I'm just hoping you did know what LeetCode was. So that's good. And should we also include our projects in the CV or just in the portfolio? Would it be repetitive to include it on both?
No, I would definitely include it in both, because your CV is what I'm using to determine if I want to look at your portfolio. So particularly if you don't have professional experience, I would replace that space on your CV with the projects that you've done. So yeah, I would absolutely include that in your CV. And I've seen lots of people do that on their CV. And it's a really, really good way of being like, oh, like that looks like a really cool project. I'll go and see if it's on their portfolio, see if I can play it, see if I can look at the code, kind of thing.
Fab. And do you have any green flags as soon as you look at a portfolio?
Green flags. Have you read the job description? I think is a green flag. I get a lot of people. I'll look at the application immediately and it'll be like, oh, well, you haven't read the job description, or a huge red flag is if it says "Dear Sir" on the top, because then you haven't read that I'm the hiring manager. Things like that. So have you read the job description? Does it look like you are applying for this job, or have you just spammed your application out there a huge amount? I think that's kind of the main big green flag for me.
Okay, fab. And just a question about the Discord stuff. Yeah, so if you go to the Discord Intergames Discord server, there is a programming channel, yeah, so that's where it is. So that's where in terms of if you want to get a link to that, it's just intergames.org/Discord, and it'll take you straight to that. Fantastic. Okay, great. Well, actually, is it good to include completed programming courses on websites like Udemy, etc.?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah,
so particularly, so if you don't have like a formal degree, which I don't believe that you need, that is a Udemy course is part of that evidence of self-learning that I was talking about. So you've off your own back, you've gone and done a Udemy course. Like absolutely, I would say, I did this course and I learned these things or whatever.
Yeah, totally. And I think something like Udemy and doing tons of Udemy courses is just as good as university, really. If you really do it and complete it and you work through it, it can be better. Potentially,
100%. Because university is mostly self-taught, like self-directed learning anyway. The lecturers are kind of there, but if you don't turn up, no one really cares. It's mostly self-directed learning anyway. So if you can show that you can do that without the university structure, in a lot of cases that's better because you are learning things that you care about learning. You're not learning things you're being told to learn or whatever,
And is there any point trying to create a brand new cover letter for each application if I know I'm applying for the same programmer role?
Yes, within reason. So I don't want to receive a cover letter that says like dear #name of company. I don't want to receive a cover letter that says dear the wrong name of company. You can absolutely have a template where most of the stuff is the same because you're introducing yourself. So you can absolutely have a template cover letter that says like dear insert name, I am this person, I have done these roles and this is my experience. But then you will need to bespoke at least one of the paragraphs to say like, I saw this job at your company and I think that I am uniquely qualified because of XYZ reasons, and address the points that are in the job description, particularly for that role. And that is where I've had the most success, and that they're the cover letters that I want to read the most. So it's absolutely okay to have a template. But there are bits of the cover letter that you absolutely should make bespoke for every role.
Fab. And could you provide an example of code tests or a technical interview? Like is there any examples out there of like that people can go and try out themselves to understand what that could kind of look like?
That's a really, really good question because technical tests are so different depending on what company you're at. So the best kinds of technical tests and the kind of technical test that I give is I have a piece of code that I've written, and I will show you that piece of code, and together we'll do a code review. So I will ask you to look at that piece of code and tell me where you think there are errors, or tell me where you think so there will be bugs in the code, but there'll also be stylistic choices. So it might be, I would name that function something different, or I would make that function const or whatever, things like that. So I will ask you to do a code review with me. And that is a very low stress technical test. And that's the kind that I like. Some companies will give you like a HackerRank style. You'll have an hour to write a very performant for loop. And those kinds of tests are good practice for those kinds of coding interviews. I don't personally think that those assess your ability as a programmer very well. I don't really agree with using them. That's why I don't personally use them when I'm hiring, but some companies do. So being good at them is unfortunately still a skill that you might need to have. So things like that, or doing the advent of code. At Christmas, there's a coding advent challenge you can do that's very similar to a lot of coding tests that I've done at different companies. But ideally, a coding test is just assessing knowledge you already have. So hopefully the knowledge you have is good enough.
Yeah, absolutely. And would it be fine to include some projects or games that aren't finished or the best quality, but have a strong section of code in them?
100%.
Yeah.
You don't, or don't even include the game. Just include the code. Just be like, I have written this feature, this module, this function that does this thing for an unannounced, unfinished title. Here it is. I don't even really need to know the wider context of what game it goes in if that game isn't finished. But definitely show me the very cool jump function that you wrote, or the very cool narrative system that you wrote, whatever it is. Yeah, you can show me that in isolation. That's very cool.
Fantastic. And I think that kind of answers the second question as well, which was, would a high level description of my code contribution to the code base of a game be sufficient when mentioning past work? But I guess it's just like, just show it.
Yeah, just show it.
Yeah,
I mean, you will find situations where maybe you have had a professional job and that is under NDA and you cannot show me the code, and that is completely fine. I do not want you to break your NDA to show me code to try and get the next job. But in that situation, saying, hey, I worked at this company and here is a high level description of what I worked on, and I cannot show you the code, but that is okay. And that is, you don't need to show me the code because I know that you have worked professionally at a company doing a thing that you've described to me. I can find out pretty quickly if you're lying to me. So it'll be okay.
Awesome. Okay, great. Well, I think that's all our questions done. Nikki, that was brilliant. As ever, it's fantastic. Really concise. Everything in it was gold dust. So, and I think everybody listening clearly got a lot out of it. So, really, really appreciate your time. It's 5. So it's just past 5:30. So it's kind of end of day anyway, which is all right, I suppose. So you can go and enjoy the sunshine now.
Well, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to pop into the Discord for a bit, just in case anybody did have portfolios. But yeah.
Yes, please do. So I think somebody's already left their link in the
okay, cool. I'll go have a look there.
The portfolio share channel in the Discord server, so not the programming channel. So
okay,
hop into that.
I'll go and look there. Perfect.
Thank you so much, Nikki. It was brilliant.
No worries. Thank you very much.
Take care.
Right.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, grand. So we're almost done. We've just got one speaker left for the day. So we've got James Gallagher coming in, who is the head of community, so head of community management at Keyword Studios. I think it's going to be really interesting. It's a really kind of fascinating, growing area of the games industry, and there are entry-level roles available in community management a lot of the time, and it kind of feels like a new way of coming into the sector. So definitely worth sticking around to watch that one. Just once again to reiterate, this whole thing is because we're running something called the Indie Games 50 or the IG 50, that's powered by One Player Mission, which is also called OPM, which is the big games recruiter. And that program is essentially an awards for the kind of undiscovered talent in the UK. So the most employable, unemployed people in games, which may very well be you watching, I would imagine. It's really easy to submit. So if you go to, just look at the little thing down here. If you go to intergames50.uk and go and submit your portfolio or CV before the end of next week, then you'll be in it. And that's judged by a whole bunch of different people from the sector. So really kind of high up people from a whole range of fantastic studios. So even that alone means that you're getting your portfolio in front of people straight away. And it's totally free and really easy. So definitely do it. Those that win, so that the IG50 will be supported by Intergames for a year. We'll have recruitment conversations with One Player Mission. We'll get all kinds of benefits throughout the year, including free courses and one-to-ones with industry professionals, all kinds of stuff to help you get hired. So it's a really great free thing for you to get involved with. So I really recommend you do it. We've got a little bit of time now. So James is going to be coming back at 6. So we'll take a little bit of a break for 20 minutes, and we will be back very soon. Thank you very much so far. Take care. Hello, everyone. We're back for the last talk of the day. I actually this time rather than tea, I managed to get myself like my whole dinner in the space of time. So I hope you haven't got anything stuck between my teeth because I have had a couple of bites. So we are welcoming Mr. James Gallagher, Head of Community Management for Keywords, as our last speaker of the day. James is going to be talking a little bit about I guess what community management is, and also, you know, how you should prepare yourself for your first community management role. Without further ado, I'm just going to bring him in actually. So, hello, James.
Hello, Declan. How you doing?
Good, man. Yeah, nice, lovely to see you.
Yeah, likewise.
Thanks for doing 6 p.m. on a Friday. My God, who does 6
I
p.m.
know.
on a
I
Friday?
hope you're not kind of your energy spent now, but yeah. Thanks.
I know. We all just want to leave now, but you're gonna push it through with us. You know, we're all so excited about community management that we're gonna stick around. So
great. Blast through.
Awesome.
So I guess I need to find a share button on here.
Yeah. If you give it a share, then I can I'll kind of scoot out of the way and then get your presentation up.
Give me a second. So I want to present that one. All right, sweet. So if I press present, I guess it will just be my share screen. And if I choose. You should see some PowerPoint. Is that all good?
Go. Yeah, well, we got it all going. So I'll scoot out of the way and let you get on with it. I'll see you in a bit.
Cool, thank you. So as introduced, I'm James. I'm head of community management at Keyword Studios. I think for those who don't know Keyword Studios, we're a service provider to the games industry, provide a lot of services, one of which is community management. I personally have been in this industry for 15 years now. I previously worked at PlayStation, at Rockstar Games, running their online communities. I feel like I'm hopefully pretty well placed to talk about particularly the application process, because our team has been very fast growing, and we've hired more than 100 community managers actually over the last 3 years. So I've seen a lot of CVs, I've done a lot of interviews, and hopefully I can kind of mention some of the things that I've seen that have kind of come over well, and maybe some do's and don'ts. But just to talk a little bit about our team, there's a bunch of interesting stuff about us, but one of the most interesting things is that we are so international. We cover 26 countries in our team. There are around 130 of us now, and we're growing very fast. And that means, you know, the clients we work for, which are kind of some mostly big gaming companies, we can support them in lots of different languages, lots of different time zones, and lots of different skills as well. So brilliant to be part of such a diverse team. And yeah, I mean, some of our work as well, just to give you a bit of context on what we do. We work with a real wide range of clients and companies. This is just a selection of them, but ranging from AAA, mobile, indie, and then social and entertainment. And the work that we do, ranges from creating Discord servers to moderation across social media. Really, everything that you would expect a community manager to be looking after is something that we do and we provide as a service to our clients. So, so I got the brief today, which was to talk about portfolios and getting your application right. And when I was thinking about things that I see when people apply to us, that I guess it's the sort of thing that comes up the most is how to present experience, because lots of people gain their experience in very different ways. And I think that we're a bit, we feel that sometimes, and I see this a lot when people apply for jobs with us, is that some people feel that it has to be like kind of a job experience in order to be valid. And I'm really don't believe in that. I think that we need to sort of stop thinking so much about work experience, because work is this slightly unclear term these days, isn't it? What defines work if you have a role, when really what we're thinking about is relevant experience, and relevant experience comes through many different forms, and also, you know, some work experience isn't relevant. That's another thing to remember, which we'll talk a bit as we go through this. So if you take one thing away from this today, and I'm talking about this because I'm obviously I don't know everybody that's watching this session, but I'm making an assumption here that many of you don't have any or much kind of job experience in this space. I might be wrong. Some of you may have. But hopefully this is for you to sort of understand how you can make the best application with the experiences that you do have. And because I really think that, and again, something that comes through in a lot of people that I meet who apply for roles at our company is that you probably have more experience than you think. Just being a fan, I mean, that is something that is truly universal, isn't it? Everybody is a fan of something. And being a fan of something gives you a perspective on fandom itself, and that, you know, that's a perspective, and that's experience that you have. And it's also another thing we see quite a lot is industry experience in other fields, like people that have worked in customer support, people that have worked in QA, in games, have probably more transferable skills than they realize when it comes to community management. Streaming and content creation, I think it's probably a fairly obvious one. We do hire a lot of people who themselves have been streamers and have experience managing their own audiences and communities. Volunteer moderation is also very common. A lot of people who moderate Discord servers and subreddits for things that they love is amazing experience for the work that we do. And then maybe less obvious, but being active in your real life community, if you know you're a member of a group, or if you're a member of a church and also or some other sort of community, and you take on some sort of organizational or you know ownership capacity in that, then I think, you know, there is crossover with sort of real life and online communities that can be relevant. So do you have more experience than you think? And what I've done is I've tried to, these are all kind of fictional, I've tried to put together like some examples of this. I think it's always nice to show examples of what we're getting across. And this is one that I kind of wrote up, which is, you know, just to show that even somebody without any experience at all in terms of, you know, jobs and managing online communities, even just talking about personal experience of what online communities have meant to you, how you've engaged with them, what they brought you, what that's taught you about them, is a really good way to, I guess, put some character behind your application, to put a bit of to sort of show why as well, because it's why you want to go after this kind of role, and a way to connect with the person that you're ultimately speaking to or writing to or hoping to connect to as a hiring manager. And this is, like I said before, some people, this is quite a specific example, but we've got a number of people in our team that were previously QA testers. And I think if you have this kind of experience, I sort of wrote this up as a way to show that you can present your experience in a way that you're focusing on the bits that you feel do sort of cross over into the role you're looking for. So this is one, for example, a QA tester. And this is like how it would appear on a CV. But you can see I've listed out the experiences here as, like, you know, as part of my job as a tester, I participated in fan forums to understand player feedback and to understand, you know, communication skills are always like a really huge part of any game job. So it's always good to highlight those. So moving on to another kind of broad recommendation when it comes to community management social roles is to know your specialty. So there is a perception maybe that community managers are meant to be able to sort of do everything, you know, whether it comes to social and moderation and analytics and all of those things. But it can be very appealing to a hiring manager, I think, if you do really focus on a specialty, if you know your specialty. Creating, as I said here, creating TikTok content is a very different skill set to moderating Discord servers. And being super focused on one skill can help you stand out. And another thing I see is I see this a lot in moderation. People who are great moderators who are they kind of undersell that as a skill, and it's a really sought after and effective skill, and there's no reason to at all. So know your specialty. Be happy to kind of talk about it confidently. So I drew up a kind of an example here as well. So this is somebody that clearly has a strong specialism in Twitch and streaming. Sorry, YouTube creator, and so I think feel free to sort of put that across. So another so when we're talking about volunteer experience, another tip here is to be quite clear with it. So something else we see on a lot of CVs that is sometimes, I guess, a point of confusion is that, so you may be a volunteer mod on a Discord server for a game. And sometimes, people might like to make their CV look nice. They might put like the game's logo and things like that. And sometimes it's a little bit unclear. You're like, was that did they work for the developer? Was this part of like an official program? Was it just like a fan group? It's kind of good. It's just good to know that kind of context to understand what that experience, where it was coming from, what it was built on. So I would keep it really clear, and just be careful with logos. I think you don't want to create confusion and create an awkward situation where you go into an interview and somebody's not really read your CV thoroughly and just saw a logo and assume that you worked for that company. This is one actually that I think is a really nice example of how to present volunteer experience. I think it's first of all, it's front and center. Like far too often I see CVs where they will have kind of what I would consider to be quite irrelevant experience at the top, which is maybe they had a job in retail, or maybe they had a job, working at a restaurant or something. And they've put that at the top because they think that CVs are supposed to have jobs at the top. And then at the bottom, they have, this amazing, really super relevant experience moderating fan community. So get it front and center and, take pride in it and list it out. I mean, this is, what I liked about this this description was that it's super clear what they were doing: volunteer, Reddit mod, and admin. I've taken out the names of the subreddits, but like numbers gives us a sense of the scale of what they were working on, and really listed out what their responsibilities were. So another pointer. So I'm whizzing through the point, but I'm sure there'll be time for some questions at the end if you want me to go back on any of this. But yeah, it's kind of like an extension of what I said before, is that really seek out all of that relevant experience that you have, and drop the irrelevant experience. There's something that I see all the time, and it's kind of a it always jumps out at me. Maybe it's a sort of personal bugbear, but you see this kind of attempt to make something not relevant, force it to be relevant. So you might be, sort of made up an example here. My role as a warehouse operative gave me attention to detail and a work ethic that translates well. And it's, it's kind of a bit forced. And it's not really relevant. So I think you can kind of drop those kind of things personally, which I would caveat all of this as being, very subjective advice. And, this is just my personal take. So yeah, just to sort of summarize the tips that we've done out. So, I mean, if I was to suggest, one approach that everyone could take, again, I don't know exactly who I'm talking to here, but if you're thinking about how to put together applications for community management jobs, and you're quite early in that career, I would sit down and just list all of the relevant experience that you've gained. Some of that will be obvious, like if you've done some of those voluntary, got involved with online communities. Some of it might be just, the first time you ever discovered an internet forum for a band that you loved, or, the time that you, you got really involved with the subreddit for a game that you were just into, and you discovered the community there. These kind of experiences that we have as fans are can be really rich. They're especially good in interviews to talk about, because what you find as an interviewer is that when people start to talk about these things that they genuinely love, they actually sort of light up. They don't know they're doing it, but they start to smile and they start to talk more. I often, if I'm in an interview and I find somebody's a bit nervous, I'll generally just ask them, well, what games are you playing at the moment? And just get them to talk about that. Suddenly, like, the nerves drop, and you can come across really personably by just focusing on those things. And then when you've kind of listed out that experience that you have, or you feel you have, that can be relevant for the role, then really see how you can shape it to be super focused on the role that you're applying for. So, but don't try and force it. And then really it's it comes down to the storytelling part. Storytelling is a very powerful way to think about any form of getting your experience across, which could be a cover letter, it could be a portfolio, it could be a CV, it could be an interview. All of those things are ways of getting yourself and your experience across to the person who's hiring for the role. And stories can take all kinds of shapes. I mean, an example is that one of the classic ways of framing a story is that, this is a community that existed before, then I came in and I took on this role, and this is what I did, and then this is the sort of outcome, which was we had more followers, or things were safer, or things were more relaxed in the so on. And then also your own story overall, which is, what's brought you here, and again, all of that fan experience can come into that. So that's pretty much like everything that I had front of mind. I guess just at the end, I mean, I think I assume that there's kind of a chance for questions at the end, but I've done a couple of these kind of sessions before, and there are a few questions that sort of regularly come up, so I just thought I would pop them in, and hopefully the answers will be useful. But one that I get asked a lot is, do I need to be a big social media user to do this professionally? I mean, this is sometimes like a slightly controversial answer. I mean, I say no, because I'm not personally, and I never have been. Some people would argue that it helps, and it probably does definitely help. But I think one of the things that I would get across is that you don't have to be kind of really out there as personally to be a great professional community manager. Do I need a degree? No, it's not something that we really that we say is a requirement in our team. I think more companies are going that way. I think the only thing I would say is that anybody that does have a really amazing kind of outstanding academic career that they've worked very hard on, we shouldn't also kind of just dismiss that and say that isn't an amazing achievement and shouldn't be factored into to their experience. Should I have a photo on my CV? It's entirely a personal choice. It's not necessary, and I personally am more in favour of the more anonymous applications are, the better, because of our own inherent biases. But I generally would just leave that down to a personal choice. And then this is one, should I have a portfolio? So what you need to do is be able to demonstrate your experience. That's what this whole thing has been talking about. And often I think portfolios lend themselves towards more visual work personally, and if your work is inherently more visual, if you've got stacks of amazing TikTok content that you've created, or you create amazing fan art, then a portfolio is probably a really good way of getting that across. I think if you've done a lot of moderation, it's probably going to be quite difficult to put that in a portfolio format, when really it's kind of more of a list of the service you've worked on, and what you've done is going to suffice. So whatever's the most effective way to get yourself and your experience across, really, it's the question you should be asking, rather than should you have a portfolio or not. how should I present volunteer experience? I think we covered that a little bit in the previous slides. Yeah, I mean, how do you get volunteer experience? I mean, that's generally the most people I speak to, the common route is that first of all, they've been active and engaged themselves in communities, and they've kind of got to know the admins, and then that has then blossomed as they've sort of got to know them and got their trust into being able to help out on the server. But then also, if you want to kind of follow, one of the best resources out there is the Discord Moderator Academy. That's got loads of advice on getting started and lots of tips for moderation itself. So, I mean, the ChatGPT thing is, when you read a lot of CVs and cover letters, if it hasn't been written kind of specifically for you, i.e. specifically for the role, it is noticeable. Whether that's written by AI or if it's like, something that you've written for a previous company and you're just kind of copying over and sending over, it is noticeable. So I would obviously avoid. Will employers check my personal social media? I mean, yes, they will. I think it's obvious. I think it's an obvious thing. This advice has been given time and time again, but clearly, as we work in this field, then it's especially a lot of people put their social media links on their applications as well. So it's always good to just make sure that what you're presenting on there is what you would like a potential employee to see. So that's it, really. I don't know, Declan, if you're there listening, I don't know if there's
absolutely.
Come in the chat if you have any questions, or if that was
no. I mean that was fantastic, James. Thank you so much. I mean, it's only a true community manager would make a FAQ, I think, at the end of the presentation based on previous presentations to save some time. So that was brilliant. I think we, I mean, like all the presentations today, it's super succinct and makes a lot of sense. And it was really lovely seeing some of the examples of potential cover letters or potential CVs that were there. And I think somebody already in the chat said, is it okay to share the deck afterwards? So if that's possible, that would be great, and we can kind of send that out on our Discord server and to some of the Eventbrite people as well. So as with everyone else, I mean, if there's any questions in the chat, then do please put them there. I mean, I guess community management is it's kind of a relatively new role, really. I mean, in terms of a formalized way, I suppose. So it's I mean, it's what, maybe 15 years kind of thing it's been around in the way it is now. So I mean, it feels like it's an exciting space, especially because pretty much every major game needs a community now, or I say major, every game needs a community now.
Yeah.
And it's the kind of ongoing support role that's there, and I think that's I think I mentioned before, it was it shouldn't be seen as the new QA for entry level roles. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's a role in itself. It's a professional role in itself, right? I mean, it's one that you can grow into and get further and further and further in terms of that role. But do you get that as well? Do you get people who are applying for other games industry positions but trying to go through community management? Does that happen quite a lot? And is that something that's okay?
I mean, it's definitely. I mean, if you're somebody that just loves games and wants to work in games, it's attainable. I think it's probably, if you're in that space, then to think, well, I'm going to be a programmer. Like, there's more that needs to happen in between. Whereas I suppose actually for most people, it's something that's attainable. And I guess it's quite appealing because it's talking to people and it's interacting with people, and it is fun. And yeah, thankfully now that there is enough. I mean, the role itself is recognized and respected enough that then, you can then become like a team lead or a manager, and then a director, and there is plenty of room to grow. I mean, in our team we have multiple levels, and I think something like 50% of my management team were community managers with us. have come through, and now they're managing teams of CM. So no, I mean, I guess what would it kind of go to? I mean, it's in. I mean, one of the absolutely amazing things about it, honestly, is that it connects with so kind of much. Like especially if you're working like at a studio, because everybody in the studio should care about the players, right? That is really kind of the reason we're all there. So you're in this super privileged position of having this kind of hotline and real like interface with the players, and literally everybody will want to connect with that, whether it's developers to understand about feedback, or marketing teams, because obviously it's a powerful marketing channel, and you've got PR teams because of the messaging that goes out to players, QA teams because of bugs that are reported in the community. I mean, everything flows through that role. So visibility, you get loads of like access to different teams, you learn a ton about how they all work. And you could, I suppose you could then think, well, actually, I like the look of that. I've worked with a lot of producers over the time, and actually myself, I've thought like that that does appeal, the idea of going into production. But then a lot of people stay because there's a lot to do, and it's growing all the time. So.
Do you have to have quite a thick skin?
Yeah. I don't know if a thick skin is the word for it. I mean, I'm not going to pretend that there isn't, that things don't happen on the internet that we all know happen. And definitely I mean, I can only speak of my own personal experience and my team's experience, and I don't think it's as bad as the bad is there. I don't personally feel that I've interacted with far more people that I've enjoyed interacting with than I haven't.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it goes across the board in most communities, isn't it? I mean, 90% of the community or more is lovely and wants to be there genuinely because they love whatever the product is. So, it totally makes sense. We just got a question here around, which is, do you find cover letters necessary? Which I guess yes, to a certain degree. But I mean, it's a pretty standard thing to ask, and shows that you put effort and time and love into whatever you're applying for. But I mean, do you guys take stock in that?
Yeah, I mean, necessary is I mean, that we have it as part of our process. I mean, I think there has to be a medium for someone to really describe themselves and describe why they're coming here and have that. I mean, I prefer that than asking people to make videos. That's something that I'm not a fan of, because not everybody wants to do that, or is naturally is going to shine in that environment. So I think there needs to be something beyond the CV, but I think I mean, we do take stock in them, we read them, and definitely the good ones really stand out. And like I said in some of the examples, the good ones is when you read it and you really feel like you kind of have a sense of that person already, because I read a lot of them that are very similar. You read a lot of them that are quite factual, and then you read one every once in a while and you feels like a letter. Doesn't feel like a kind of, I don't know, like a bio, or like
yeah, or just a rehash of the CV.
Yeah.
Like it's not. Yeah. It's I suppose that's the thing, isn't it? It shouldn't be a rehash of the CV in a traditional sense, should it? It should be like a letter. Yeah, like we're saying. So, how would you want to see a portfolio presented for more visual-based community management roles? Something similar to an art role, or in a different way. So I'm assuming this is something with a kind of video-based community, or or something like that. Is there any particular way of presenting that?
I wouldn't overthink it. I mean, it's something that's easy for me to access, and it's going to be. I know what I'm looking at. I think that's whether it's I mean, if it was just statics, I think a PDF of just as high res as possible, and if it's video work, I don't know, like a microsite or social media links or anything like that. I don't. I think it's the content really, more than the vehicle. if that makes sense. If that answers the question, just looking at the chat again.
No, definitely. And then, so what's the sort of length is ideal for a cover letter? I mean, like, you don't want it to be any more than a page, really. I would say. I mean, like, everybody's time is short, so if you can get what you need to get across in 2 or 3 good paragraphs. I mean, I think brevity is everything with these kind of things, and it's if you kind of wind on for ages, like, it's not going to benefit anyone.
Little very basic quick win tip is like when you're, I find with a lot of writing actually is speaking to some sort of dictation software, like an app on your phone or on your computer, or like record yourself and then type it out, but say what you want to say and then take those words. Because I think sometimes people can be a lot more succinct and get themselves across a lot better verbally than they can when they've got a blank piece of paper on a keyboard, and it's everybody works different, right? So it's whatever's for them. But in terms of length, I mean, it's I don't think they ever need to be more than a page, and I would say even a full A4 page of text is going to be like, oh, it's got to be good, I think, to keep someone for that long.
Absolutely. Okay, fab. I think that's all of our questions answered. Just want to say thanks so much, James. We did it 6:30 on a Friday. Thank you so much for coming and making it this time. Really, really appreciated, especially on a sunny day. There was loads of great stuff in there, and we'll be kind of passing on any bits and pieces to the community as we do. So just want to thank you again for your time, and I'll see you very soon, I'm sure.
Brilliant. Thank you, Declan. Really appreciate everything you do. So thanks for having me.
Thanks, man. Take care, James. Bye.
Bye.
So thanks very much, guys. For those of you that have made it from the start, there might not be any of you, but well done. That's a lot of information to take in and lots of different roles. I'll keep on repeating it again. This whole thing is because of the Intergames 50, which is powered by One Player Mission, or OPM, which are a kind of a games recruitment company, one of the UK's largest. The Intergames 50 is a way of celebrating the UK's undiscovered talent, and is an award, award for 50 people that are essentially the most employable unemployed people in games. We've been running this, so we ran our first one last year. This is our second year in, and we're already bigger and better with everything we're doing with it, including the support that we offer for the winners. And that support pretty much ranges to a whole year of free courses, introductions to industry, first looks at internships and apprenticeships, and entry-level roles at a whole bunch of our studio partners throughout the year. So we really try and look after those 50 people as much as possible to get to the point where they're in work. It's totally free to enter. It's really simple. There's you can enter for a whole range of disciplines. So pretty much any discipline in the games industry you can enter, whether that's community management or QA or programming or art or design or production, whatever else it is. We take anyone. So it's a really short application form, so it shouldn't take you any more than kind of 10-15 minutes to fill in. And this whole process has been a bit about hopefully trying to improve your portfolio before you enter. So maybe your portfolio is just ready, it's good to go, in which case just go to intergames50.uk and go and enter straight away. If not, then you've got until next Friday. So the Friday coming up to enter. We really hope to see your entries and get you in front of as much industry as possible. If you haven't already, join the Intergames Discord. It's usually quite a lively space, and it's got lots of industry professionals that can answer questions. And over the next few months, we're going to be kicking off our regular design workouts again, and all kinds of events and bits and pieces on there. So go and join that. Go and join our Twitter, which is Intergames HQ. So you can keep up to date with some bits and pieces there, or our LinkedIn if that's for you. If Elon has scared you off, then definitely LinkedIn's a good one to go to, and we might be going there most of the time ourselves. So it's just been a really exciting, interesting afternoon. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've got some information out of it that is going to help you get hired. Intergames is here to support you in what you do, so always feel free to reach out and we'll support what we can. And just really hope you have a great weekend and a great start to next week. And good luck on your job hunting. We'll see you soon. Bye.